going down there. You can you see me?
Yeah.
Sorry, that don't work.
I'll be doing this.
I just there's a bunch of people that I know wanted to be here that can't, so I
Hey,
figured.
that's all good.
Are you really moving?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I will be
She's out of here.
distracting. I'm not kidding. Can't she sit still?
You're being recorded right now.
Am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm not I wasn't gonna edit it out. Now I'm not gonna.
Oh, no.
Now I'm gonna leave the wave in
No,
there.
look at me.
Yeah.
That'll be our thumbnail on YouTube. Mary
There you
going
go,
like this.
Very
Waving by.
So thank you guys for coming out. I know most of you are not sound engineers, but I invite worship teams to this, worship leaders, singers, musicians, because what I cover today is for both of us. We talk about a lot of interaction that needs to happen between the booth and the stage that is paramount for our relationship. For some reason, and I found this to be true, and I know most of you guys will probably agree with this, there's a disconnect between the booth and the stage, and we're one team. What happens on stage can't happen without the booth, and there's no need for the booth if there isn't what's going on the stage. Right? So we are part of, even though there's, you know, in here at CCW, there's what, 100 feet between us? We're still one team. Right? So that's why I invite worship teams when we go on to the next level of training, when we actually get hands-on with a board. Maybe the worship team doesn't need to be there for that, or maybe they want to learn. Like Julie was just saying, she may have to run the board. You guys know, you do anything and everything at a church plant. We're just figuring that out, right? That's actually how I got started. There's an ugly picture of me, and I'll just explain some of these pictures in a minute. So a little bit about me. Most of you know me. Some of you are just getting to know me. I've been a sound engineer for over 20 years. I started in middle school. In 8th grade, I figured out I could cut class by being a sound engineer. So my hand was the first one up. I went to a small Christian school, very similar to Western Ando. We went to a different church at the time, and the new choir director we got at the school was like, "Hey, I know you, come be in choir so the kids will respect me," or whatever it was. Like, okay, fine, I don't really want to sing, but I'll still come. A couple weeks in, we got preparing for our first program, and they're like, "Oh, we need someone to turn mics on." I'll do it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll do it. I don't want to sing. And then, so that's how I figured out I could leave early. Oh, I gotta go set up microphone. It was one microphone. I gotta go set up mics. And then the next class, oh, I'm gonna be late. I have to break down the stage. And that's how it started for me. And then through that, we ended up going to the church. And at 8th, 9th grade, I jumped in and with the guys there, and they started teaching me, and did it on and off for the next few years. And then in 2007, we started going to what's our home church up in New York. And because I had the background, and one of the pastors and one of the elders knew me from high school, which we can tell stories about that another time. They're like, "Hey, we need a sound engineer. Will you sit in with us?" You know, and I said, "Sure, I'll get behind the board. I'm a little rusty, but you know, I'll sit down." And that's kind of where it took off full time professionally for me. We had just built, or when we started, we had 2 buildings. Each had its own independent sound system. A few years later, we built a multi-million-dollar building. We put in, you know, we're talking about getting ready to move up to a building and put a sound system in. And you know, somebody said $100,000 the other day, and our elders, their eyes got real big and their jaws dropped. The sound system we put in our building in New York was $150,000. So it's easy to spend that amount of money when you have it. Do you need it? Not always. You know, we're trying to figure out how to stay under 10 for our new one just to get us started. And so, I mean, the sky's the limit, you know. So I started doing that. When it came to installing, we hired an install company, but because I was the head sound engineer, and that's what the church was paying me to do, I jumped in and did a lot of the install with them, you know, learned a lot more. Some great guys out of New Jersey. The one guy's actually passed away. But I got to work with them day in and day out, running the wire. We ran underneath our floor. We ran, I think it was 2 miles of fiber optic cable for sound, for video, for lights, for all that. I've actually, you can see here, a picture of Jeremy Camp. I've done sound for King and Country. So this is my old church. The sound booth dumbest design ever. The guy was from Tennessee. I don't know if that's why he designed the building. The sound booth was actually on the second floor. Dumbest thing I've ever seen, there was no access from the booth to the floor, so you literally had to walk basically from the stage in CCW's sanctuary to the back booth to get to the stairs, down a flight of stairs, and back just to get to the front of the sanctuary, and then you still had to go all the way through the sanctuary. So we started hosting concerts. For King and Country was our first concert that we hosted there. It was supposed to be an acoustic set, and they showed up, full lights, full band, full production. I actually got to run sound for that, done sound because of the church that we had for German Camp, Big Daddy Weave. We Are Messengers was there, but I didn't do their sound. So, and I'm not telling you all this to pat myself on the back. I know what I'm talking about. I have the experience. I'm still learning. Some of this stuff, like even as I was reviewing it, I'm reminding myself of this stuff. Nate and I talk about it all the time, that just because Nate's been doing this for 20 years or 30 years or however long he's been here, I've been doing this for 20 years, I've never stopped learning. I want to continue to learn. I just want you guys to know I'm not just some schmo that's walking off the street. I really do, for the most part, know what I'm talking about. So now we've got that out of the way. Let's get a few other things out of the way. If you are looking to be a sound engineer, to be in the spotlight, there's a door. This is not the place to be a sound engineer, to be in the booth, is not the place for you to come and be in the spotlight. It's not, the best sound engineer is the one that no one knows is in the room. The best, and I'll jump ahead a little bit, but the best compliment you can get as a sound engineer is when no one knows you're there. So if you're looking to be a sound engineer, you're in the wrong spot. You're gonna make mistakes. You are going to make mistakes. Musicians, the same thing for you guys. Get over it, right? Deal with that mistake. Learn from it. Don't stop learning, but you're gonna make mistakes. It's not that you make mistakes, it's that you don't repeat that mistake. And this is something that is very important, and we talk about it a lot here at CCW with our, we have a Sunday morning experience team meeting, the preachers and some of the other guys get together. There is a very fine line between production and worship. We're all here because we are part of that production, right? We have lights, we spend all this money on sound systems, we have slides, we have all the things because it is a production, but we can't let that production interfere with the worship side of it because that's what's important. Right? That's why we're here in church, is for that worship. So there's a fine line between production and worship. You have to tread carefully on that. So now that that stuff is out of the way, some basic things you guys need to know. If you're not careful, you may learn something today. Right? I can't give you a formula for how to do this. I can give you guys a baseline. Right? I can give you some tools, impart some knowledge, hopefully. Just because you want to be a sound engineer or do lights or whatever in the booth doesn't mean that you're going to. It is a very specialized ministry. Yeah, we can train a monkey how to click slides. Right? It's not that hard to sit there and press a button. But what happens when the computer crashes? What happens when the slides are in the wrong order? Right? What happens with sound when there's feedback? We can train anybody to run faders. My daughter's 13, 7, and 5. They can run faders. You know, and Michaela is 13. Most of you guys know her. She knows how to do sound, and she started just running faders for me. But what happens when there's feedback? What happens when a mic doesn't work? Right? Just same as, I'll put it in the worship team context. Just because someone comes to Pat or to Mikey or to any of you guys and say, hey, I want to be a singer, doesn't mean they're going to be on stage singing. Right? Just because somebody says, hey, I learned how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb on the keyboard, can I come be your piano player? Probably not. Right? There's other ways we can use them. There's other areas that they can serve, but especially in sound, which is why we're here today, it's a very specialized, very specific thing. Doesn't mean we can't take someone that has no idea what they're doing and train them up and teach them, which I've done that over the years. Someone that has no clue what they're doing are now sound engineers, but it's a very specialized thing. So please don't think, I want to serve, I want to be involved, and this is an easy way that I can do that. So I'll just volunteer. And maybe that's how, especially starting out at a new church or smaller church, that's how you get volunteers. But that's not always the case. I don't know, I just thought this was funny, I threw it in there. The top one is very specific to churches. Yes, it's loud, get over it. No, I can't, well, this is more, anyway. This one, yes, I know what all these knobs can do. If any of you guys have ever seen the new soundboards, that is probably the number one question. I started years ago when we switched to digital using my iPad, and I do it here, and you guys have all seen me run around the iPad. People all the time, what does this do? Yes, I know what this does. Shut up, go away. No, you can't touch it, and yes, some of us do this for a living. I don't know if you guys are like me. When I learned to swim, my dad said, hey, here's the pool, figure it out. I drowned a little bit, I didn't die, and I figured it out. I learned how to swim. That's what sound is. I know most of us have been thrown into the deep end. Hey, look, here's the mixer, you volunteered, thanks for coming out, now figure it out, we're gonna go do something else. What do I do? That's just the way you learn, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's doing sound is stressful enough without not knowing what you're doing, right? You got the congregation yelling at you, you got the band yelling at you, the pastor wants something, the other person in the booth called out, and I mean, there's enough going on throughout the day. You don't need to be stressed out because you have no idea what you're doing. You know, just like learning how to swim, there's books and there's videos, and you can get a coach or an instructor to teach you, but at some point, you have to figure it out for yourself. Just like riding a bike, you can have the training wheels, you can have mom or dad holding you. At some point, you're gonna have to take the training wheels off and figure it out for yourself, and that's really what being a sound engineer is. I can't give you 10 steps to being an awesome sound engineer, but I can help lay the foundation and help you along the way. A lot of what sound is more caught than taught. And that's true for a lot of life, I think, but more is caught than actually taught. So it's learning, paying attention, watching videos, watching other people, talking to other people, reading books, those are all things you can learn to help you, but there's nothing better than getting behind the mixer and just doing it. So the truth behind church sound, everyone in this room, I think, is a volunteer, right? Person that showed up, you said, hey, I want to help out, I want to volunteer, and someone said, hey, there's a soundboard, go figure it out. I think most of us would agree that one time or another we were dropped into the deep end and we were told to figure it out. Right?
I like the last one, what we actually do is serve him.
Yes. Yeah, I made that years ago. Just because that's what it is. That's what we're here for. Yeah, all this stuff is well and good, and training is awesome. You know, we'll talk about some of that in a little bit, but again, that's why we're here. We're here to serve God. Yeah, there's just a lot of dumb stuff in here that's kind of funny, but this is not easy. Being a sound engineer is not easy. It takes a lot of work. They say to become an expert in anything, it takes over 10,000 hours of doing something, right? So let's put that in practical terms. There's 40 hours in a week, 250 weeks. That's 4.8 years. If you did something for 40 hours, it would take you almost 5 years to become an expert at something. So as a sound engineer, a volunteer, you do it about 4 hours a week, maybe, right? 2.5 hours of practice, an hour and a half on Sundays doing worship. At that rate, that's about 200 hours a year. At that rate, it would take you 50 years to become an expert. And 4 hours a week is generous, because we all know it's not always that, right? Here at CCW, it might be a little bit longer because we have 2 services, but so you're talking 40 or 50 years as a volunteer to become an expert at this.
They say the same thing about guitar players.
Yeah, anything.
10,000 hours.
Yeah, anything, and that's, I don't know where they get the number from, but yeah, anything we're doing, whether it's work, playing guitar, singing, video games, building a house, whatever, 10,000 hours to become an expert. When we all know this is, and I talk about this a lot throughout the day, this is not a set it and forget it type thing. Right? You don't just turn the board on, get it on, and walk away, go have a cup of coffee. It's not just turning on the knobs there's making sure the mics are working. If you're doing, lights, it's making sure they're on and they're working. Setting up the stage, which is one thing that CCW doesn't do, which I don't understand, but that's the way it works for Nate, and that's awesome for them. Setting up the stage, finding the right mics, monitor mixing, monitor placement, stage noise, front of house mixing. I'll get into front of house a little bit later. If you're doing graphics, the colors and the background and the font, and the list goes on and on. Probably the hardest part of doing this is working with people, working with each other, working with the congregation. And I say this all the time. When you go to a concert, right? Say you go to a Garth Brooks concert. What are you expecting to hear? Garth Brooks. Right? You go to a Metallica concert. What are you expecting to hear? Metallica. When you come to church, what do you want to hear? What you want to hear, right? So say you have 500 people in a sanctuary on Sunday mornings, you have 498 different opinions on what it's supposed to sound like, right?
Yeah.
Because I come to church and I want to hear what I want. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I want what I want. And that's just the nature of human beings. Right? So church sound is difficult, but it's also ministry. We are representing Christ first and foremost, and second of all, we're representing our church. 2 + 2 = 5. There is not one size fits all when it comes to live production. Everything changes and will change all the time. Smaller churches don't have this issue, but sometimes they do. A guitarist will play 2 or 3 different guitars in a set, right? The vocalist may switch positions. They may practice, 1, 2, 3, 4 on Wednesday, and then it's 4, 3, 2, 1 on Sunday. Believe it or not, that's going to change how things sound. Someone's going to get sick and call out. Equipment breaks. Equipment does stop working. Believe it or not, the weather affects how it sounds. The barometric pressure is going to affect how things sound. So it may be cold on Wednesday and the room sounds different. There's also no people in the room. And then on Sunday, it's warmer. Things are going to sound different. So there's no one size fits all. Sometimes the pastor calls an audible and completely changes the whole order of service. It's just something you have to deal with. So there's no perfect formula on how to do this, but what we're trying to do is give you the tools and the guidelines. You have to be committed. Hopefully you're here because you want to be a better sound engineer or learn how to help the sound engineer or work together better. Commit your time and energy to being a better engineer and you will become a better engineer. You may be a volunteer, but it doesn't mean you can't continue to learn. Can't continue to do your best. God does not want mediocrity. He wants the best of who we are. So being here in this ministry means going above and beyond and giving your all and giving the very best of what you have. Bring your A game. This is so important. Bring your A game at all times. It's so easy, especially in practice or rehearsal, to just turn the board on, sit back, kick your feet up, play on your phone. I get stuck doing it too. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. But God requires and deserves our best. Our pastors, our church, the worship team, congregation, hey Glenn, deserve the best of who you are. And I'll break this down a little bit. The worship team, you guys are practicing for Sunday morning. So you're giving it everything you've got. You're going out there, you're singing, you're trying your hardest, you're studying, you're practicing. You want the same from us, and we expect the same from you. We don't want, as sound engineers, I don't want the worship team to show up on a Wednesday for rehearsal and just phone it in.
Well, my thoughts on that are they need to be attentive and making notes so that they know which singer's singing lead on which song, so that they're pulling those up, bringing the other down as the harmonies.
Yes.
They need to know if the guitar player's doing a solo. If more piano needs to be heard on a song, they need to be making notes.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is worship or practice, rehearsal is for the worship team and the sound engineer. Yeah. Right? Yes, and we'll come back to that, but yes. Be on your A game, bring your best. Every time you set foot on stage or in the booth, be giving 100%. Right? And again, people are sick and life happens, you're having a bad day. That's to be expected. But don't just show up and phone it in. practice is also a way for you to learn how to perform. Opinions are like armpits. Everyone's got at least one, and most of them stink. Right? I already gave you guys the analogy of the concert. But almost everybody in the building on a Sunday morning has an opinion on the way it should sound. Right? Mrs. Jones is going to come over and say it's way too loud, or I didn't like the way the guitar sounded. Doesn't mean you just blow her off, right? Yes, there are times where we're so focused on what's going on that we ignore somebody. Right? But you can't just blow her off because she's part of the church. We need to respect the preferences of the congregation. Like I said before, church is the hardest place, in my opinion, to do live sound. Right? We're fighting that balance of what sounds good, what sounds right, and what does our congregation want, right? What is our worship team, our worship leaders, what are they expecting from us, and what do the people in the congregation need? What does the pastor need? How does he want it to sound? What is the congregation hearing? We are fighting that balance, and everybody has an opinion. We're here for the congregation. This is a ministry that helps and assists to guide God's people to Him through song and spoken word. It's our job as engineers to make it look and sound the best we can, of finding that balance that works for our ministry. It is not all about that bass, no matter what Megan Trainor says. Success isn't gauged on the quality of your gear at all. Right? I talked before about our church in New York had a $150,000 sound system, and going up to CSCC, we'll be lucky if we get a $10,000 sound system. What you do is not about your equipment at all. Small steps. Everybody here is at a different level, whether we're talking about sound, whether we're talking about musician or singers, we're all at different levels, right? So if you're just starting out, this is your first, I don't think we have any first-time sound engineers in here, but for people just starting out, their success might be no feedback, and everybody's mic was on, right? When you get older and been doing this for a long time like me, sometimes it's learning how to mix those vocals, continuing to work on EQs, continuing to work on gate and compression, and continue to master those things. Right? So everybody is at a different level. But we all have to be committed and to bring our A game. Last and probably most importantly is prayer works. I know it sounds like a cliche, I know it's sounds crazy, but there's times where, as a worship team, I know it happens to you guys too, you get overwhelmed, right? You just have a terrible run through on Wednesday, and Sunday mornings you're just feeling like trash, and things aren't working. Stop and pray about it. Whether you're new or an old season pro, you get bogged down and overwhelmed with things that are going on. As a sound engineer, you have a million different things you're thinking about. You've got to remember who's singing what song and who's leading this song. And, oh, the pastor's mic's got to get turned on, and oh, we have a special music today, and am I gain right? And we have a video playing, and and then somebody comes up, and inevitably, in the worst day, comes up and complains. It makes you already stop and pray. There has been so many times over the years where I've just been so overwhelmed, I've just thrown my hands up, walked in the back room, said a little prayer, come back, and what do you know? It's work. The ghost in the machine, for any of you that know what that is, nobody knows what it is, but most of all the people that represent this room, the soundboards we have are computers. We don't have analog boards anymore. Computers glitch out. Computers freak out. Sometimes you shut it off, you turn it on, and the problem's gone. It's gonna happen. Sometimes you turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, nothing's still working. Don't hit it with a baseball bat, pray about it. And it may not always work, but I found a lot of times taking a deep breath, stopping and praying about it, is gonna fix it. Mikey just brought in pizza. Yeah, Mikey. So please feel free to help yourselves to eat. If you gotta go to the bathroom, I'm not gonna get all upset if you get up and leave, but trying to get through this so we're not here all day. But I know I'm going through this kind of quick. You guys have any questions, anything that I've covered so far that you want me to go back over, or? Okay, cool. Some things you need to know. Worst case scenario is going to happen on Sunday morning. Not every time, 99 times out of 100 when I've had a problem, it's been Sunday morning. Yeah. Wednesday goes great, rehearsal on Sunday morning goes great, service goes to start, what the crap just happened?
Yeah, and I don't understand it. It's like what happens between, and nobody messes with anything.
Yeah.
Everybody walks away, you turn the thing back on Sunday morning, and it's just a mess.
Yep.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Every time. Guaranteed.
Yeah. And it's something
Yeah,
that,
that's exactly what it is.
yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not one to give too much credit to the devil, but I would say a lot of times, but it's, you know, it's one of those things where it's expected, you know, and that's being prepared. Expect the unexpected. Things are gonna happen. Worst case scenario is gonna happen when you least want it to. When you're in the worst mood, when you're not feeling good, when things are already rocky, that's when problems are gonna happen. And that's also where communication is important. Because there's times where in the booth, there's nothing I can do about what's happening. Right? I'm working on a problem that you guys have no idea about on the stage, and I'm scrambling, pulling my hair out if I had
That's
any.
what happened to it.
I had an afro before I became a sound engineer. And so just saying, hey, look, you guys got to give me 5 minutes. I'm dealing with something. I'll figure it out. I'll fix it. You know, and same thing when there's a problem. You know, Ernie breaks a guitar string because he's rocking too hard. You know, you're not gonna get upset at him. All right, take time. You know, we'll do something else. You know, so that communication, you expect the unexpected. Mixing is only part of your job, and I don't mean like mixing with cake, mixing with a soundboard, and some people don't understand that, but anyway. There's stage setup, wire care, maintenance of your cables, batteries, keeping track of the equipment, working with God's people, none of whom are more difficult to work with than me. So,
Well, that's true.
it's not, oh, and I know it too. It's not, but so our job is not about just standing at the soundboard and mixing, making it sound good. There's so much more involved in that. We assist in the experience God has for his people. Our job is to work with the band, work with the worship leader, the sound team, the pastor, the booth, even the congregation if we need to, each other, helping lead the congregation in worship. The spoken word needs to come as seamlessly as possible. Yes, mixing, or if you're doing slides or lighting, they're important. And like I said before, production, there's a fine line between production and worship. But the production of the worship service is not about how great the set goes. It's about offering your gifts to God and serving the congregation, assisting the worship team, and helping the church experience what God has planned for them during any given service. Distractions are going to happen. Your phone's going to go off. A light's going to flicker. Little Miss Jones is going to come up and want to talk in your ear while you're mixing. Distractions are going to happen. It's how you get through that. There's going to be lulls. There's going to be times where the communion guy rambles on for 10 minutes. Don't zone out. Right? It's easy to, I don't need to pay attention because this has nothing to do with me. No, pay attention. Be ready. Stay focused. Learn to manage distractions. Little Miss Sally is going to come over and want to talk to you about how she thought it sounded today. Don't blow her off, but maybe right then and there is not the time to stop and have a conversation with her. Maybe say, hey, you know what? I really want to know. I really want to hear you. I want to get your feedback, but can we talk about it after service? I can't tell you how many problems that I've dealt with and for lack of a better term, had them go away because I was attentive, but said, hey, I have to get back to what I'm doing. We'll get back to you later. And she'll come back and say, oh, it was a little loud today, but thank you for talking to me. And sometimes that's all it takes. Right? Learn to manage those distractions. The booth is not a place for people to congregate and hang out. Right? The booth is not a place where you should be playing games on your cell phone. The booth is not a time to just sit and hang out. There's times where sometimes you have to get out of the booth quickly. So having people standing there congregating, you can't do that. Right? Learn to handle distractions in the right way and learn what can wait till after service. A great mix does not guarantee great worship. Sometimes you feel like you've had the best mix of your life, that everything was on point, the band was great, you know, they didn't miss a single cue, nobody sang off key, the slides were on point, the lights look great, but the congregation just isn't feeling it. Don't take that personal, because it's not about the mix, it's not about the production. Great worship, on the flip side, does not depend on a great mix. And we can go outside right now and sing Acapulco, and it could be the best worship set we've had all year, right? Why? Because it's not about the gear, it's not about the equipment. A great mix does not depend on that. The lights, the sound, the slides could all be great or terrible, and God's going to continue to move if He's there. So it's not about us. This is one that took me a long time to get over. People are going to talk during worship. People are going to talk to you. People are going to talk behind you, next to you, in front of you. It's just something that we have to deal with. People are going to talk. They're going to talk during the sermon. They're going to try to talk to you, to each other, have conversations. Cell phones are going to ring. The baby's going to cry, whatever it is. Learn to manage those distractions. One of the hardest things for me, and I think anybody who's a sound engineer will tell you, we have an ego, because musicians don't have egos at all. Anytime you see someone talking, you assume it's about you. And anytime that you're struggling with something in the booth, and you're listening for something, and you know something's not right, and you know it may be a little loud, and you see somebody over there having a conversation, you automatically assume it's about you. 9 times out of 10, they have no idea what the heck is happening because they're having a conversation. But don't take it personal, because it's not about you.
You don't even know you're in the room.
Exactly.
Paranoid ego.
Which is rule one.
Not everyone is moved by corporate worship. Linwood is my favorite example of this, and he'll be the first to admit it, so I'm not saying anything. Linwood will stand there like this, and you'll talk to him afterwards.
And it was
That was the greatest worship set ever. I was so, you stood there, look at stats, but not everyone is moved by corporate worship, and we all express that differently. So don't, again, if you see someone in the front row stone-faced, don't assume that you don't know what they're dealing with, you don't know how they respond to that.
Yeah, I've purposed to walk up to somebody that was standing there with their arms over their chest, looking like they were just miserable. And I'm like, did you enjoy the worship set today? Oh man, that was the greatest, you know.
Yeah.
And they gave details and everything, and it helped me realize, you know, not everybody raises their hands, not everybody claps, you know.
Exactly. I think this could be true for any profession, your knowledge is gonna hit a wall. You're gonna, maybe new at this, you may be a seasoned veteran, even for guitar players and singers and preachers, and again, what you know, your ability, your knowledge is gonna hit a wall. You're gonna be so excited, you're gonna learn these new things, you're gonna try these new things, and all of a sudden you're gonna feel like, holy crap, I know it all. Or I need to stop, or don't let that stop you. Continue to learn. Figure out what it is you need to learn, because once you hit that wall, that's where the real work begins. Right? Figure out what your next step is. How do you get better? How do you improve upon your last mix? How do you improve upon your last set?
Yeah.
Every mix is going to get better if you want it to get better. If your goal as a sound engineer or a musician or a singer or a preacher is to just be okay, you're going to just be okay. Your job as a sound engineer, if you just want to have everything turned on and people will be able to hear something, that's where you're going to stay. Okay?
Hey Dale, I've been working for the same company for over 35 years. And I get young guys that come on board and they're like, 35 years, how the heck do you do that? Never stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
If you stop learning, doesn't matter what you're doing, it's the beginning of the end for you, because you're gonna become less useful.
Yep.
Because things keep on changing. You know, 35 years ago, I had to pull over to a payphone after every stop and punch in the secret code so I could listen to my answering machine at home. And now I thought it was cool stuff when I had a bag phone. You know, oh man, this is awesome. But things keep on changing. Things have changed in the industry, and it's going to continue to change even for what we're doing. It's never going to stop. I mean, it used to be a piano. A piano and a bunch of singers. That's it.
Yeah.
Now you can't give away one thing.
Yeah.
So basically, if you want to get better, you'll find a way to get better, and you will get better. Live production is stressful. Plain and simple. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things happening that, as you guys will know, most people in the building on a Sunday have no idea what it takes for us to do what we do. But it is very stressful. Things are going to happen. Things are going to go wrong. And there's an old saying, blame it on the sound guy. I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, I'm a sound engineer, anytime there's something wrong in this service,
It's your fault.
everybody turns around and looks at me if I'm behind, even if it's lighting, even if it's slides, even if the singer decides to put their mic in front of the monitor and there's feedback, I get blamed for that. You gotta have big shoulders, but it's stressful. So thank you, sound guy, every once in a while, please. Learn what you do and do not have control over. Again, I am a control freak. I want things to go perfectly, because musicians are not control freaks at all.
Not at all.
I think any of us with band experience, especially, you know, we appreciate the sound engineer.
Yeah. Learn what you do and do not have control over. Like I said, if the singer drops her mic in front of the monitor for the 1,000th time, and you've told her 1,001 times, have another conversation with her. Love her. Try and teach them through that. Now we're all going to in-ear, so we don't have to worry about that. Right? Your memory is better than the average person in the congregation. In 10 minutes, Bobby's not going to remember that you forgot to unmute somebody's mic. Right? Or that the guitar wasn't plugged in, or the roll, whatever. Let that go. You singers and musicians, I'm sure you guys have the same thing. You're gonna miss a cue, you're gonna miss a note, and for the rest of the day, your day is ruined because you missed the one. Let it go. It's gonna happen, right? You have control over it, just don't make that mistake a second time. Learn from it. Compliments are not the norm. I said before, if you're in this to get a pat on the back, get an attaboy, get people to recognize you, there's the door. Compliments are not the norm at all. No complaints are your compliment. Like I said before, the best day that I can have is when no one knows that I'm in the room. Right? When no one in the congregation knows that I'm in the building, that is the best day as a sound engineer. Because that means there was no mistakes or none that anybody that stood out. And this is where the communication, and like I said before, we are a team, the stage and the booth. If the worship team gets a compliment, that's a compliment to us. But you guys also need to relay that to us. Same thing as if somebody comes up to us and says, hey, that was great today, the band, we need to come to you guys and relay that to you guys because we are a team. Right? Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord, not as for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Jesus Christ. I said it before and I'll say it again. We're not here for recognition from man. Yes, the pat on the back, the attaboy, it feels good every once in a while, but that's not where we're here. People are going to let you down. If you're looking for that recognition, I hate to say it, but again, you're in the wrong spot. This is a ministry not to be in the spotlight, not to get recognized. Unless you do something wrong, of course, everybody's going to turn and look at you. We're here to serve as an eternal reward. And I would say the same thing for the worship team. It's a little different for you guys because everyone's looking at you, but it's not about you. It's not about us, right? But I hear it all the time when we gather to pray that, Lord, let people not see me, right? Even as preachers, I don't want people to come up and thank me when I preach. It had nothing to do with me, right? I've heard Pat say it 100 times. I've heard Joe say it 100 times. It's not about us, right? What we do is for God. Kind of just fits with what we were just talking about. Terms and definitions. I am not going to, there are more terms and definitions than I can even remember. I do want to hit on a few of them. You know what these are?
Microphone cables.
They're cables. Right. A lot of people call them wires. There's some people, I think Nate does it every once in a while. Do I have a mic wire? What the heck is a mic wire? They're cables, but whatever, you know what we mean. There's actually two different kinds. This one, anyone want to take a guess what this is called? You might already know.
RCA.
Nope. Quarter inch, right. Because that is a quarter inch. This one, no. So there's several different of these, different sizes. This one, the little one, I don't know if you guys can see, it's not actually a quarter inch, this is a 3.5 millimeter. There's black lines on these. And again, from back there, you might not be able to see them. You've all had headphones, you've all had their tip ring sleeve or ring, the one on your Apple phone that has a microphone in it. It's a TRRS tip ring sleeve. Again, most of you guys probably don't care about that. Some of you do. We can talk about that later if you want. Basically, that's a 1/4-inch cable that you plug into your guitar. This one, anyone know what this one's called?
XLR.
Anybody know what XLR stands for? No, because nobody does. Everybody's.
You plug it into a microphone, I know that.
Everybody assumes XLR is extra long range, but honestly, you can talk to 100 different sound professionals and everyone knows what it's called. All the research I've done, never know why it's called XLR, just it is XLR. The biggest difference on these is what they do, obviously. These don't go more than 10, 15 feet. The signal will start to degrade, just the kind of cable that you have, why it's made. So if you see these guys with a 30-foot 1/4-inch cable and their guitar sounds weird, it's probably the cable. XLR, you can literally run these things for a mile. If you have a good cable, right connection, you can run these for a mile. Again, most people assume they're called extra long range. Again, I'm not going to get into why they're called what they're called. In the sound world, something you hear very often is called dB to decibel. It's just what sound is. And again, we can get into that another time. Everybody in here knows what feedback is, right? I don't have to go through what feedback is. We've all heard it. If you haven't heard it, next time you're in the sanctuary, ask your sound guy to cause feedback. It's fun. Anybody know what FOH stands for?
Front of house.
Front of house. What is front of house?
Stage?
Nope. That's a very common misconception. Front of house is actually in front of the stage, which is the booth. So anything in front of the stage. So you hear your front of house speakers are the ones that are facing the house, as opposed to your monitors or your stage mixer, which is on stage mixing for the stage. Intelligibility is a very important word for, I think, anyone, sound, musician. Intelligibility is the clarity of sound or speech. That is probably the most important thing that we will talk about today. As a singer, you want to be heard. As a preacher, you want to be heard. Right? And not just heard making noise, you want to be able to be understood. Right? As a preacher, you want someone to be able to understand clearly the words that you're saying. As a sound engineer, my job is to make that as possible in the best way that I can. Monitors are something that are going away, somewhat thankfully. We've had several, Ernie's shaking his head because we've had several conversations about this recently. And
Like in-ear monitors?
Oh, no.
there are pros and cons to monitors. They were the thing at the time. Now going to in-ears helps us as sound engineers because it completely takes the noise level in the room from here to here. Going back to intelligibility, that's what we want. Our job is to be able to make things heard, right? So when the noise level or the busyness of the room is here, it's one thing, but when it's here, it's a lot easier for us to deal with.
So you're telling us we're gonna have in-ears?
Pretty much.
Are we gonna have our own channel?
Oh, yes, please.
Please
do that.
tell me
We'll-
we're gonna have our
We
own
all,
channel.
we all have our own.
We're working on
Church.
that.
Dale, I can't do it. If I'm gonna have to be sharing with 4 other singers, I can't do it.
We're working on it.
Probably won't have 4 other people sitting at the same time.
Yeah, it's probably just gonna be you most Sundays.
No!
You know how often it is just me singing on stage? Like, I mean, like, we give Stan a microphone, but he's like,
It's
and
gonna,
he's like gone, you know,
it's
he
gonna
says
at
like
least be me and
tone deaf when it
Steve.
comes to singing. That's how desperate.
Steve, your kids aren't allowed to get sick anymore.
But having your own channel, I mean, that is completely
Yeah.
important, having your own channel, because, I mean, at Go Church, we all have our own channel. We have 16 different channels that we have complete
Well,
control
isn't
over.
that lovely? We share between 4
Yeah,
singers and it's horrible.
I could never do that. That's hard. Like,
You're gonna
this-
have to delete this from your little video that
You
you
can't-
have going on
You
right
can't
there.
turn yourself up, you're turning everybody up. Like when you're turning, like you guys have the me thing, right? Turn me up, it's everybody. Every single-
I need
Oh, yeah.
But you have the
I
same
need
thing
more
that you do.
piano than everybody else. It's
Alright.
just the way my brain works.
We'll come back to the rest of that later. Yes, Glenn.
You know, you may ask me to leave after this, but it's just how I am. XLR stands, this is through Wikipedia. XLR stands for external line return.
Yeah, don't listen to Wikipedia. Not everything on Wikipedia is true. And again, that is one
It's
of
what
the.
it says, that's what it is.
Well, what I read here is it's XLR is the part number prefix.
Right. So
Yeah, that's a million.
if you ask Nate, he'll tell you what it is, and,
What
and
Dale just said.
he'll say it's. I'm just telling you, all the years of experience I have, everything I've ever looked up, everybody I've ever talked to, there's a lot of different explanations and whatever. It's an XLR cable.
Why are you wasting time on this? Just move forward.
Everybody, you're the one who brought it back up. Everybody else can agree on it. So anyway, monitors, love them, hate them. Everybody that's doing music, musician-wise, needs some kind of sound coming back to them. Whether it's just hearing the mains, and that's what they use, whether it's a floor wedge, which is also a monitor, whether it's a in-ear, everybody needs something. Anybody know what this is?
The big soundboard.
Soundboard, mixer, desk, console. In England, they call it a table. They're weird, I'll tell you. So everybody knows what this is. This is a very small one, and we'll get into that later. Processor. This is something we'll talk about a little later, so I want to hit it now. A processor is a device that alters or processes audio signal. So just keep that in mind, and we'll come back to that a little bit later. Any other questions besides, are we getting in-ears or monitors at the new church, or what do I need in my monitors? It's a valid conversation, but we can have that conversation again later. Any other questions? Anything that I ran through that? Cool. Anybody want to take a break, or you guys want to keep going?
Keep rolling.
All right.
Anybody need to go to the bathroom?
If it's too loud, you're in church.
We're beyond high school. You can do
Yeah.
it. You can go when you need to go.
Believe it or not, I've actually been at that church.
Wow.
Okay.
That's not even
Are
sound.
you
That's not
kidding?
even sound. Like you usually at least go to 0 or -5.
So I didn't actually, not this picture, and I wasn't running sound, but I have been at this church. Anyway, so if it's too loud, you're in church. If it's too loud, you may be too old, you may not be.
Just saying.
Earplugs, dB levels, decibel levels is how loud it is. We use a professional grade here at CCW. I have a dB meter on my phone. They're okay. The one that I paid for is the closest I've ever found. And it's just gauging how loud the room is. You can go on, and I can give you websites if you want it. One of the biggest arguments is how much sound, how loud is too loud. Just to give you a couple examples, neighborhood, walking around during the day is about 55 dB, or decibels. At night, it's about 45 dB. Classrooms are about 35. Well, the teacher is talking, probably 5 times that when all the students are talking. Hospitals during waking hours are 45 dB. Hospitals during sleeping hours are about 35 dB. I did not make those numbers up. They're on the OSHA website. I am using my phone to record, otherwise I would put it on. Right now, I would guess this room is about 65. Because normal talking is about 65 to 70, depending on how loud it gets. For the workplace, OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Nate has set the standard here for CCW. We will probably adapt a similar standard. And this is based, it's not because Nate just picked a random number and said, hey, this sounds good. He's going off of what OSHA says. 85 dB or higher for prolonged exposure will cause hearing loss. So what does that mean? 95 dB, no more than 8 hours. So mowing the lawn, have a hair dryer going for 8 hours, truck traffic, don't listen to that for more than 8 hours, you will begin to have hearing loss. 95 dB, no more than 4 hours a day. 100 dB, no more than 2 hours, and it goes up from there. Once you get to 140 dB, which is a gunshot blast, a jet plane taking off, etc., no exposure to impact without damage to your ears. So again, I flew through those real quick if you want to talk about those later. Basically, most worship sets that I've ever run are anywhere between 80 and 94. Here we try to keep it about 92. Doesn't mean it's a constant 92, doesn't mean it will peak above 92, but that's a good general range for most people where you're not gonna incur ear damage for the duration of the hour, hour and a half that we're in service. I mean, even less than that because worship's not the full hour, right? Now that also doesn't mean that a guitar won't be a little shrill and seem louder than it is because of the note that it's playing, right? So again, there's a whole lot of technical stuff in that. Oh yeah, I forgot I had those up there. So you can see, that's what I was just reading, you guys.
Does your dB go down with between like an empty room and a full room?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing on stage. When I'm coming on Wednesday and I'm just blaring everybody out, and then I come in on Sunday and the room is full and I can't even hear
Yes.
myself.
Absorbing,
Yeah.
absorbing all
And
this
that's what I was saying earlier, where an empty room and a full room are gonna absorb sound and sound differently because then you have bodies absorbing that sound.
Right.
The temperature outside, the barometric, that's gonna affect your dBs and how things sound and how, the sound, and I think we get into this a little bit, sound is actually waves, it's sound waves.
Right.
So the barometric pressure is gonna affect those sound waves. And so that's why, yes, Wednesday is gonna sound completely different than it will on a Sunday.
Well, it's like
when we
on
get
a,
our
it's like
service.
on a clear, cold night.
Right.
You can hear it a long ways away, you know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we're talking about. So,
Right.
and that's where I said before, I can't give you a hard and fast rule. You know, Go Church, because of the acoustics in their building, may actually run a little lower dB because they have weird acoustics. We have to figure out at CFCC what's our happy medium gonna be, and it's gonna take us a while because of the shape of the room that, you know, depending on what building we get and all that, that all plays into it. What's on the floor? What's on the walls? Who's in the room? Who's not in the room? What kind of speakers do you have? Where are they pointed? I mean, all these things are factors that play into how does the room sound, and in that you have to figure out how loud is too loud. What's a comfortable level? Are our monitors adding to that or taking away from that? So these are all things that as a sound engineer, we need to be thinking about, and as musicians, you guys need to be aware of. Some of this doesn't affect you guys because you're up on stage with floor wedges. All you guys are hearing is the floor wedges. Yes, you're gonna hear the house, but I'm hearing everything. And so it's a balance. You know, you guys, not that you don't hear only that. With the in-ears, yes, it changes the dynamic of that. But, so that's kind of where and why we do some of what we do. Any questions on that? Cool. Again, just a funny, so now you've been thrown in the deep end, now what? You have some idea what you're doing, but you're doing a doggy paddle and you want to survive. Now it's time to get thrown back into the deep end. And I tell anybody that I'm training, anyone that I'm working with, teenagers, adults, if I'm training you, once we get to that point where you're on the board by yourself, I'm gonna let you sink or swim. If the building catches on fire and things are crashing hard, I'm gonna step in, I'm gonna fix it the best I can, and we'll talk about it later. All right, so if I'm ever training you, or when we get up there and all of a sudden I just completely stop a worship set, or it's not anything personal, it's not because you're bad at your job. There's times where things are happening and I have no idea what's going on. Right? Especially if you're starting out, and again, most of you guys have some experience, so I don't need to do this as much. But please don't ever take it personal if I just jump in, right? Take notes, figure out what happened, we'll talk about it later of, hey, this is why I stepped in. Because again, it's different between service and rehearsal, but during service, our job is to make that flow as seamlessly as possible, to have less distractions, because distractions take away from why we're there. So if I'm doing something and I can't figure it out, and you walk by and you say, hey, I know what it is, because I had that happen last week, by all means, jump in or tell me, hey, this is what it is, and we'll talk about it later, we'll fix it later. But don't ever take it personally. The sound system. This is actually a picture of the board I hope we are getting, well, we're getting the 32 channel, this is the 24 channel, but we'll talk about that later. Sound systems for you guys, you set up every week. It's a little different for you. CCW, it's been here for a long time. At our church, we may have to install it, it may be there, pieces, parts, I don't know. But understanding the way the system is set up and why it works, the way that it works, will help you as a sound engineer and even a musician to understand this, to troubleshoot things, to have problems, to figure out the problems. So you have, whether it's a guitar, a microphone, a keyboard, a CD player, something is making noise, right? And it has to get back through the speakers, has to get to the people. Right now, yes, like in building D right now, we're not using any kind of sound. All we're doing is yelling or speaking. So that kind of does away with all this. But at some point, we'll have a sound system. How does it work the way it's worked? Or how does it, why does it work the way that it works? So you have something making noise. It goes into the board, from the board to the processors, from the processors to the amps, which are what gives it power, from the amps back out to the mains or to. And this is a very simple diagram, but understanding this helps you understand what we have here at CCW, or even when you guys set up, or what we'll have, or even some of these $300,000 sound systems. If you can understand this, you can understand almost anything. Right? Understanding signal flow. Again, microphone, instrument to the mixer, to a powered speaker or non-powered speaker, which requires an amp. Two things you'll hear a lot of times is active or passive. They're talking about the type of speaker that it is. An active speaker has power, a passive speaker requires power. That's all that is. Sound, as you know, is, so basically it goes into the microphone and you hear it almost instantly, but there is a delay there. Sound travels at about 343 meters per second in dry 68-degree air. Sometimes that's going to change. But so what you're hearing almost in an instant is taking time to get through the system. Signal, I absolutely love digital boards. When I got a digital board for the first time, it completely changed the way that I mixed. I can do things on a digital board that I never thought of being able to do on one of these. There's onboard processors, which is gate, compression, EQ, reverb. Anything that is not built into this board here is a processor. And now on a digital board, it's all here. No more buying extra equipment, no more calibrating that extra equipment. It's all in here, right? I'm able to mix with an iPad, which for me is great. I can walk the room and not have to hurry up and get back to the board, right? Graphical EQ is, basically I can look at a picture of the audio spectrum. The audio spectrum goes from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, right? So you guys probably not old enough to remember this. Remember in your old cars, you had the two knobs, one said bass, one said treble? Mm-hmm. Basically, that's the whole audio spectrum into two knobs, okay? I can actually take now on a digital board.
I still have that in my car.
I do love my truck now.
Okay, all right. You never know some of you young guys, you never know. I've said that to people and they're like, huh? Anyways, so what I can do now with a digital board is I can narrow into where exactly I want to be. Because those bass and treble, they operate on a bell curve. So the curve will start at the top. So if you put it at 1K, right? And the top of that curve is at 1K, that bell curve is huge and it affects everything from 20 all the way up to probably 10K. So anytime you move that whole curve, the bell curve moves. But now with a digital board, I can zero in on 1K and probably only affect 920, 950 to 1050, 1030, somewhere in there. So I know I'm getting way off, but that's one of the best things about digital boards. And I can actually see that on a graph where I'm not just twisting knobs and guessing. Yes, it's not just a set rule of, oh, there's this problem and I'm going to put this number. There's still some technique involved. The one thing I don't like about digital boards is people don't understand why they do what they do. People don't understand this signal flow coming through a digital board because they have all they're doing is turning knobs, pressing buttons. It doesn't make sense. One of the things that I don't like about their board is even their board doesn't make sense to me because of the way it's laid out. You figure it out, you work with what you got, it is what it is. So one of the things I stress is signal flow. Why we do what we do. So think of sound as water, okay? Water coming through the microphone is just coming at you 150 miles an hour, no filters, no nothing. It's just dirty, raging water coming at you. And it hits the board. What do? First one you have is gain, or trim, or head amp, or they're called different things on different boards. That's the dam at the top of the lake. That decides how much of that water, how much of that signal you actually let through. So if it's completely off, no signal gets through. If it's wide open, all that water comes through. We have to find a balance of where is that. One of the things that we'll do in the new building, and Nate did here, and I'm sure you guys do a little bit, and we'll talk to your engineers when we do this, is setting that gain structure of figuring out what's that sweet spot. Where is that number of, if I'm at 12 o'clock, I'm getting feedback. All right, I want to back it off to 10:30 because I don't want feedback, so I'm going to bring it back a little bit. All right, so I still have some headroom. So gain is figuring out, all right, what am I letting through? And then on this one, the next one is your aux channels. Okay, your monitors, your outputs, your cry room, your overflow room. You're just diverting that signal. So you're setting up a secondary dam that's sending that water. Now you can also, I don't know if it's on this board, but some of the boards you can actually put the signal and processes on that output, which is a completely different animal. But you're just saying, hey, you know what, I have this raw signal coming through, I just want to send this over there and we'll deal with that later. Right? Then you flow down to your EQ. And that's what's the signal? That's your filter on the water. Right? So you're not filtering out all the impurities. You're filtering out the things that came through that you don't want to deal with anymore, right? So maybe on a vocal, maybe Julia has a problem at, say, 2K, right? At 2K, she's just sounds a little weird, right? So you're gonna filter that out at 2K, right? And then for guitar, Ernie's hitting those good notes, but it's a little muddy down in the low end. So we're gonna filter it out at maybe 400, right? So that's what the EQ is. You're applying those filters, right? And then the signal continues to flow down, and then you have, which we don't use well, most people don't use well, is pan, left and right. And again, some systems don't even have stereo, so pan doesn't do anything, but if you want to use it, you can send the signal to the left or to the right. One of the tricks for all the new electric drums or even electric keyboards, you can actually make them sound bigger than they are. If you have a true stereo channel and I'm running an electric piano into channels 10 and 11, I can actually pan those to, say, 11 and 1, and you will actually hear that guitar bigger, or the piano bigger than it is, right? Because you listen with your ears as much as with your eyes, right? So again, this is kind of off topic, but so the signal continues to flow down, and then you have your mute, which that could stop it, right? Mute's hit, nothing's gonna come through that channel. So the signal continues to flow down, you get to your fader, and that's kind of your final filter for the most part of how much of that water, how much of that signal are you letting through. Because hopefully by the time it gets to your fader, which is the little white knobs down here, by the time it gets there, it's a clean signal. It's a clean, crisp drinking water that you want to enjoy. So you have to send that somewhere. So that's where it goes back out to your amp or directly to your speakers.
What do you do when you're dealing with like a person like me who's sending you a fully saturated sound already that's already mixed at my board? And I'm sending you a mixed signal. Because I have a modeling board, and I'm sending you something that's already my volumes, my mix, everything that I have. it's a fully saturated signal that I'm giving you.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
9 times out of 10, I'm gonna leave something like that alone. 9 times out of 10, I know you have a pedal board and you have a sound that you want to come through here, so I'm gonna leave it alone. I may mess with the EQs a little bit if I notice there's a problem area. Right? I may put on a set of cans or a set of headphones and listen if there's anything, but most of the time, I'm just gonna leave that alone because I know there's a sound that you're going for.
Okay.
Right? Now, there are sound engineers that will completely mess with that, but if I know you're going for something specific, you know, and again, that's where the communication comes in, where you say, hey, on this song, leave me alone. Because on a digital board, I can hit a button that adds your EQ, and I can hit a button that takes that EQ off. So maybe it's a certain song that you want that certain sound, I turn your EQ off, we're good to go. So the next sound I apply to you.
So you could actually take my reverb out of my signal, or no?
Probably not.
Okay.
I could probably EQ it, or depending on the processor that we have, or the outboard processor that we have, I don't know if there's an anti-reverb there. I mean, theoretically, yeah, it's possible. But yeah, most of the time, I'm not gonna mess with that signal.
Okay.
But that's important to know that, hey, you're dialed in like that.
Okay, what about my headroom? Should I give you all of my volume?
Yes.
And let you deal with it?
Absolutely.
Or should I?
Every
Okay.
instrument on your stage should be volume at
Max.
100%. Because then you don't have the option of, oh, I want to hear myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn myself up, and all of a sudden our mix is like, what the crap is that?
Well, see, I was, okay, all right.
And that's something that, because remember, you can't hear the whole house the way we can. That's why we're in the front of house,
Right.
So if your volume's at 75% and I've got a good mix, everything's going good, and all of a sudden you decide, well, I'm feeling funky, and this is my solo, so I'm gonna turn myself up. All of a sudden, and we may not realize what happened, but all of a sudden we've got something funky going on, and that's when the stress begins.
Right.
So if you're at 100%, you have all the control that you want or need, but ultimately I have full control. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that's not what I usually do, because I normally give you like a rhythm, a rhythm section, and then I have a solo, and that
And he picks it up
and that is that volume, that setting is a lot hotter.
Yes.
and then there's EQ, Ernie Quinn. playing this.
How about vocals, I was always used to backing off the mic because I know I'm loud, but, then they say, oh, back off.
As a sound engineer, I will not chase you. If you're doing this, I'm not going to chase you, because some of that is technique.
Yes.
Right? Some of the big professional singers, there's a reason they do that.
Yeah.
If you're not sure of yourself and you're not sure where to go, or you're not sure the note you're going to hit, and you pull back, why am I going to chase you and make you louder for that instance for something to come through that you may not want? So I'm gonna find that dark practice level. Doesn't mean that I won't ride your fader a little bit, because again, it's not set and forget it, but I'm not gonna chase you for the most part.
Well, because right now we're sharing
System.
English?
the in-ears, we're
Yeah.
sharing them. If I don't back off my mic a little bit, I'm gonna blow out their ears. So I have been told to pull back a little bit in my sweet spots where, because I'm singing, even just a word sometimes, that word, I'm able to power that word because, or that phrase, because it's a natural power point for me. So are you losing me if I'm pulling back a little bit? Because to me,
No.
that's a good
Well,
vocalist.
Am I losing you? Yes, because you're away from the mic, but if you're projecting and hitting that note anyway, then you're doing exactly what you need to do.
Yeah,
Just make
because
sure
to
you
me, that's
still
a good
hit-
vocalist,
That's
because
it.
Make sure you're still hitting the mic.
You're still
though.
heard.
Like,
I'm considering the ears of the people that are in my mix,
Yeah.
or that are hearing what I'm hearing.
you don't want to like pull completely away from it. Like you still want the sound getting in, but yeah, you're backing off a little bit to kind of, because you have to, somewhere you have to do that. You have to project or phrase like you're saying.
And this
Yes,
is, a lot of this is more of your communication with your sound guy, and you guys really have to put the full trust in him, because for vocalists, like you're saying, pulling away from the mic, that's sort of a technique. For guitarists, we don't really, I used to do the same thing. I do 50% on like my rhythms, I crank my solos. And that's where, like, now that our sound guys are getting much better, I just leave it at 100%. I let them do everything. Like you're saying, take notes. So, hey, he's got a solo here, so I need to make sure I bump him up for this one song because he's not able to do that anymore. So that's all on your sound guy being the part of the team. Is he's running everything that you guys hear out in the house. So you have to put full trust in him to say, okay, he's gonna turn me up for this solo, and if he's not, then clearly my solo doesn't sound good, or he doesn't want it in there. It's worship, So we're gonna drop it down. If you're pulling too far away from the mic, hopefully he's gonna say something, and Dale would definitely say something like, hey, I
Don't do that again.
You're going too far away. You can go away, or you're going too far away, or just stay in it, and I'll drop you, or whatever he decides he's gonna do on that. So that's the communication there. Is they'll get with you and let you know what you need to do to make it sound better.
And one of the things that is important as the praise leaders of the church, and I'm talking about everybody on the team, it is important to us that you guys are taking notes and knowing what's happening during the set instead of sitting back there playing with your phone.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of a strange animal. I don't actually take written notes, but worship and begin to practice rehearsal is as much for me as it is for you. Absolutely, and that goes back to giving 100%. Like if you guys show up, and again, everybody has an off day, but if you guys show up and like the stools on stage drive me nuts during rehearsal, because you guys, as a whole, people are sitting down, not singing full out. So I'm getting a mix, I'm working on what I need to work on, and then Sunday, holy crap, where did that voice come from? Because you're standing up, you're in it, giving 100%. So that's why at rehearsal, it needs to be 100% both ways.
Well, after singing it for the fourth time,
I get
it's
that.
like my vocal cords can't
Yeah.
take the full.
I completely understand. But even if you sing at 75% standing up, it's different than singing sitting down.
Yeah,
Well, see, that's good for us to know then.
Yeah, that's why I can't stand sitting down. Like we did the confessions night or whatever, and Jesse's like, oh, we're all gonna sit on stools. I was like, oh dear God. Like you want me to sing while sitting down? Like, what does that even mean? So like when I'm sitting, I'm like, like hovering
my
above this.
diaphragm,
Yeah, I'm like,
If you're sitting up straight, of course, you can push your.
You can push it a little bit more,
You can feel
Yeah, and it's, yes, it's rehearsal, but again, we're preparing, and this is where the production side of it comes in. We're preparing for Sunday morning. So like you're saying, you don't want us sitting back taking notes, or not taking notes, playing on the phones. We don't want you guys not to give 100%, because then we know Sunday what we're getting into.
Gotcha.
So and again, there's give and take. There's going to be those times where yes, you've gone through it the fourth time, and at that point, that's easy for us to just kind of tune out and have a conversation with the person doing the slides, but we still have to be paying attention because we need to know. Because during that lull time, you guys might decide to change an arrangement, and you were leading, all of a sudden Steve's leading, and if I'm not paying attention, I missed that.
There are people sitting on base in the living room.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
No. So the reason I pull this out and the reason I go through that is because someone learning, not understanding this, is going to jump on a digital board and have no idea what they're doing. No idea why they're doing what they're doing. And you can learn that way, and all the kids coming up behind us, most of them these are going away. Right? These analog boards are going away. So yeah, they'll be able to make sound and they'll learn the board, but they're not going to have a true understanding of why they're doing what they're doing and why it works. Because understanding the way that the board works and the system works, troubleshooting becomes paramount when something happens. If you don't understand how the system is put together, if you don't understand signal flow, then troubleshooting becomes that much harder because you don't know where to start or where to begin. Because there's times where, all right, I'm getting signal from Ernie's guitar, but I'm not hearing Ernie in the house. So there you've already cut out 3 steps because you know you're getting signal to the board. So what's happening between the board and the main speakers? So understanding that, now I don't have to start at Ernie's guitar, right? Because I'm getting signal. Now if he's playing and he knows he just changed his batteries and I'm not getting signal, then I jump back to his guitar or to him. So understanding how that works helps me as an engineer to know where do I jump in, where's the disconnect.
Or a lot of people don't realize that sound is actually analog. So
Right.
for digital boards, it's being converted from analog into digital.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
How much line loss do you experience in that? I mean, is there a lot of losses if these things get clipped? Or
Not really. I mean, there's always going to be some, but you know, if you have good cables, you know, and you're not going to lose a lot of that signal. You know, and again, using a 30-foot one of these, you're going to experience line loss. You know, now with digital, everything's fiber optic. You know, like our new board that hopefully we're getting is all going to be Cat 5, Cat 6 cables.
Right.
Almost none with that. Which, I mean, you can run that stuff for days
Yeah.
and still have, you know, in the old days, yeah, you had to have some kind of proximity to the stage,
Right.
you know, but there's not a lot. Yeah, so understanding why, and it's good for musicians to understand too, how signal flows. So if you're plugged in and not getting anything, well, is it on my end or is it on your end?
Right.
You know, is it something's not plugged in right, not plugged in all the way, you know, a bad DI box, a bad whatever, you know. There was one time, this was like a month after we put in our new system at our church. And again, I'm running upstairs to downstairs. I think this was even before I had the iPad. And our worship leader, he's playing and got no signal. You know, he's hitting it, strumming, nothing. I got no signal on the board. So I'm freaking out what the heck is going on, still trying to learn the system. So I'm running up and down stairs. We're walking really up and down the stairs, trying to figure it out. We switched out his batteries. I switched out his cables, the DI box, everything. I'm checking the patching on the back of the board. And I'm freaking out. After about 25 minutes, I'm like, all right, what the? So I stopped working through the signal flow. I looked down, the channel was muted. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? All it is, and it was so it's just things happen, you know. Just you gotta. But again, I'm going through all the processes, and it's just, you know, it happens. So any questions about that? I know that's, but I hope that helps you guys understand. Yes, sir.
Is everything going to be hardwired, or are you going to have transfer?
Still working on that. We're still trying to figure out what our budget is. There's
Wireless stuff is not in the budget.
there's pros and cons to both. You have less signal loss and less signal interference with hardwired, obviously. Your stage is also a mess with wired.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's
Well, if you have a
Ocean
static
is not approved.
situation.
Ocean is not approved with the wires.
Yeah.
I'll bring wireless with my stuff
I'm
and get something halfway
I'm pushing for wireless. We can do more with it as far as proximity but again, the price is 2.5 times, you know, an SM58 is $100.
That's what we use.
Curiosity, other than us three, is everyone else currently here going to?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no CCW people here.
Okay. I'm trying
Except
to,
for you.
because people are asking
For now.
questions, I'm trying to figure out where they are and where
Yes.
they're going and what the relationship is.
Yeah, we're going to church. Everybody else is CFC.
Cool. Any questions? Any other questions about that stuff? Cool. Board setup is something that I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on, but actually tomorrow, today's Saturday, yeah, Sunday. Tomorrow, Nate, Jesse, Crouch, and myself are completely redoing the sanctuary here at CCW. The board does not make sense. When I say the board doesn't make sense, is over the years they've added instruments or added things, and things are just packed in and plugged in wonky places. As a sound engineer with a very analytical mind when it comes to that kind of stuff, it needs to make sense. So what works for Go Church, how you guys set your board up may be different than how we set ours up, or even what Nate is gonna do tomorrow, but it still needs to make sense, because the more it makes sense, the quicker I can find it, the quicker I can solve the problem. Right? So like here, for example, they have their drums, and then they have a bass, which is good progression. They have a guitar, and then a piano, and then another guitar, and then a flute. And so that doesn't make sense so sometimes we're scrambling, and now I'm trying to figure out, okay, where is, so it should make sense as far as the way, and again, everybody's a little different. I'm somebody, I want the main pastor's mic and an outside channel. Mm-hmm. Now with digital boards, and the one we're getting, and even the one here, they're in groups. So there's breaks in the board, so it's not like these are all continuous. There's actually a space. So I'm okay with having the pastor's mic be on an outside space, But to me, that is the most important mic of the day.
Yeah.
Right? Worship, yes, is important. Communion and that, but the person speaking is the most important. So if I can find that one the quickest, the easiest, that's what's most important to me. And again, that's some of that is personal preference. The other hard thing, especially for like you guys, is you guys break up and set down every week, right? Or break down and set up every week. So you guys don't want Jake's mic in channel 2 this week and channel 7 next week,
Right.
because then that even makes.
So like, on our board, and they're all labeled. Like you've seen it, like
Yeah.
it's digital labeled. So it's number 1 is Pastor Mike. So number 1's Pastor Mike, and then we have vocal, and then from there it breaks. We have, since we use backing tracks and guides and stuff like that, that's the next thing. So those are the next 2 channels, and then we have guitars in a row, and then we have keys.
Yeah.
And then it's, since we mic every drum individually because we don't have electric drums, we use electric drums. 11 through 16 on the board is all drums.
Okay.
So like
how's that work for you guys with a regular set of drums?
it's a lot more fun when there's someone playing. I'll tell you that much.
It's awesome when there's someone playing, but because we're in a cafeteria, it's also ridiculous.
Yeah. So we do have a shield. Like we use a shield in front of it. I don't know. I know it's doing something. I don't know how much.
I love the sound of acoustic drums,
So do I.
but in all
From
reality,
what I'm saying,
reality,
it sounds fine. Like,
Yeah.
Like
I know we've tried it in here before, we've tried it in the gym, or like saying in here as in the sanctuary.
You
We've
just
tried it for the
can't.
youth in the gym,
Yeah.
like, it's hit or miss, you gotta do it well, or else it is just gonna overpower.
The
everything.
one benefit you guys have is you're in a cubby hole up there.
yeah.
The what?
Exactly.
Our people don't care.
Well, that too. Well, they do. But you guys, your stage is kind of that little cubby hole.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
So your shield is sending the sound up,
Right.
and then it's bouncing around in there and coming out. So there's some delay, which in drums, delay is not that bad of a thing. In here, the reason it doesn't work is because it's a straight wall behind it, so it sends it straight up and straight over.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And we've got curtains all around the stage that absorb some
Right.
of it, And the screens are on the stage, so it's getting trapped behind the screens a little bit more too. So it's a little easier to manage.
The building we're looking at, it's actually a domed roof. So if we put an acoustic set on the corner, same thing with the monitors, the floor wedges, it's gonna send that straight over the top. And that's just gonna muddy everything up.
So,
yeah,
acoustics are amazingly, they're just fun to play, they're great sound, but you can control so much more with electric.
Well, everything's modeling that, everything's
Yeah.
modeling, and it's like amps are like a total waste of time anymore. I mean, I can't wait till Marshall amps go on sale where I can actually afford one, because they're gonna have to literally give them things away here in the next 10 years.
That's
Because everybody's getting away from them. You don't
it
need
sounds
them.
so much better though.
You don't
Well,
need
believe it or not,
Right. So much better.
believe it or not, and this is going back probably even 10 years, when you go to some of these big rock concerts and you see all those Marshall cabinets,
They're not even using them.
exactly,
Yeah,
they're just dummy cabinets,
Yeah.
because you don't need them anymore. They're still great, they sound good for somebody like you who wants to be home and jamming out at a big concert like that. You don't need them anymore.
No.
So they're there for aesthetics, because like I said before, you hear with your eyes as much as your ears. Same thing with a lot of these churches. Like we went to Winter Jam, and Crowder's there playing on an upright piano.
Yeah.
That's just a shell.
Yeah.
Which I was actually talking to your husband about it. We should do the same thing. Is you take the shell and upright piano, gut it, and slide the electric keyboard right in there, because you're hearing. That's why now I'm not speaking about drummers. Right? Drummers are a whole different animal. But that's why most people don't like electric drums, is because they think they're hearing something different.
That's exact. Because you
I understand the sounds are different. I understand it feels different, some of them, and it plays different. But most people are seeing that and think, oh, that sounds different. Which is why in older churches, most people don't like the drums, because they see these, at rock concerts. That's what they play at rock concerts, and now it's on our stage. Well, if you have a drummer that knows what they're doing, it's going to sound even better. So people hear with their eyes. They see things and assume that it's going to sound one way. I guarantee you, and this is not a shot at anyone, but I guarantee you, if you went to some of these older churches that are anti-guitar and anti-drum and only want the organ, I guarantee you I can crank their dBs up to about 110 and no one would complain. Why? Because they're seeing the organ, they're hearing the organ, and that's what they like. We could put the same songs with a full rock band up there. I could put the dB at 75, which is retarded, and they would complain that it's too loud because they're seeing the instruments.
We had that in North Citrus when we were
Yeah.
to do that.
Yep.
You know, a lady came up and was like, "Yeah, that's too loud," and the pastor was like, "No, sorry, that's how we're doing it now."
Yeah.
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 Which is cool.
When you guys go, because I know like from what we were talking about, like having things labeled and organized is really important, especially because like CCW and Go Church, like so many different people running the board, so many different, like being able to quickly find something, especially if you're not doing it every weekend, week
Right.
out. Are you guys having, are you guys having one person? Are you having?
Our church is right now, we're
starting
looking at
off, or-
2 to 3, not counting me. I am a big fan, and I do this on all my equipment.
Oh yeah, just like the
I-
one there.
The one I did up here, yeah.
Piece of tape.
Masking tape, not gonna hurt anything. And yes, all the boards are digitally labeled, but you have to hit a button to find it. This, I can know exactly where the channels are. Now, the board in CCW Sanctuary is upwards of $20,000. I can understand Nate not wanting to put tape on it. I don't agree with that, but that's the way Nate does it, and it works for their system. Go Church doesn't have any labels because, again, you can see there's a little different board.
We don't use any more than those 16 channels
Exactly.
anyway.
So you can look and, and that's all this is, is masking tape and I mean, so that's the other hard part about having multiple people, but none of the 3 churches can afford to pay a full-time.
They don't have any scribble strips like what they're putting on like Helix and stuff like
You
that?
can get them,
You can get them?
yeah, you can
Where
get
you
them.
can actually,
But for me, that costs $2 and the Sharpie costs 97 cents and,
right.
you know what I mean? And yeah, the scribble strips will work. I worked at one church where they had magnetic little strips cut out where they would, if Susie was singing on channel 7 this week and Julia was singing on channel 7 next week, they just move the whatever works for the church that you're in, the space where you are. Cool. Any other questions, thoughts?
You doing that thing with Jesse tomorrow afternoon, after the service, or,
Yes.
After.
again, just making sure. I'm
So
laying
next
along.
Wednesday will be an absolute mess.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's Holy Service, you should do it.
Well, it's funny, somebody asked me, are you gonna run sound next weekend? I said, no, I'm not here anymore, but I probably should have, but that's all right, they'll figure it out. It's just different, it's not that the person that's scheduled or will be scheduled is not a good sound engineer, it's different and, I think it's gonna help once everybody realizes that, hey, it's gonna make sense. Whether it makes sense in Nate's mind or my mind or however we collaborate with that, it will actually flow properly. Cool. Stage plotting is something that we don't need to get into a lot, but it needs to make sense the way that your stage is set up, right? Bass player needs to be near the drums, although with an electric drum set it doesn't make as much sense. If you're using 4 wedges, yes, because what they're hearing is closer than what Ernie and the drummer need to hear, or the singer and the drummer. You just need to hear. I mean, we talked about it with even Julia and Steve need to hear different things in their ears, and they're both singers. But so just the way it's set up needs to make sense. As we get down the road, you guys, you have 3-4 people, so it doesn't, not as critical, but again, it could be. In-ears are changing a lot of this
Yeah, all of our,
as well.
everybody that's on stage, everyone's different every single time. So
Yeah.
like, for instance, I keep both in, but like one of them is slightly popped out, so I can
That's
still
fine.
hear outside. I can hear myself, I can hear what's coming out of the mains. And then, like my wife, for instance, uses one. She pans all the sound into one, which I tell her not to do, but she does that anyway. She pans all the sound into her left ear, and she doesn't wear the other one at all because
Yeah.
she feels she can't hear herself. Stan,
I'm one.
he
It
one,
depends. If I'm
yeah,
singing, then it's one. If I'm just playing, then I'll.
Do you
Yeah.
guys use ambient mic?
no.
That might be a good idea for you guys.
That's one of the reasons I pop one out, so I can hear the congregation too.
Right.
Like I want to be able to hear what's going on in the room, not just
Yeah,
myself.
ambient mic either in the, depending on what you're looking to hear, either in the back in the booth,
Yeah.
well then you gotta be careful with conversations going on, or just an ambient mic up on stage.
Yeah.
But that gives you in your ears kind of what you're looking for. It's not
Right.
perfect, but that's
But it's
something we were
better-
talking
yeah,
about the
that
other
way I
day.
think, yeah.
That's actually a smart idea. I never thought
Yeah.
about doing that. That's cool.
So I get paid a little bucks.
So I get paid a little bucks.
But yeah, so stage setup, it needs to make sense, right? It needs to, again, look aesthetically pleasing. You can't have everybody in a straight line, you know, because as much as people are here for Jesus, they still want to see the worship team, right? Crazy as it sounds.
I used to like mic stands.
Yeah, mic stands, music stands, those kind of things are, you know, I am probably one of the few sound engineers in the world that is not a musician. Never claimed to be, never pretended to be, never want to be. The only thing I play is the radio, right? But I'm a big proponent, and I know we had this conversation briefly the other day, and I've had this conversation for years. I'm a big fan of learning your music. Now, I understand you have 37 songs you want to play in a year. To learn all that is difficult. But to not have this in front of you, this is a disconnect.
Oh,
Right?
I agree with you.
This is a complete disconnect between me and you.
Oh, they're gone. We got
Right?
rid of them.
So
You guys
to
want some
learn
music
that, and even, you guys don't use a confidence monitor, do you?
No, so now we switched from, we were using music stands and like sheet
Oh,
music.
iPads, right?
Now we have tablets and we have tablet mounts on our microphone stands. So like we don't have the music stands anymore, and there are 7-inch tablets that are just we can see it. It's not in the way of
It's like a confidence mark.
It's a
You
confidence
really
mark. Everyone
can't,
has
you
their own
can't read it
personal
well, but
confidence
you can at
monitor.
least.
Right. The hard thing with a confidence monitor, as great as they are, as good as they are, the hard thing is if something gets messed up and you're only relying on the confidence monitor, you don't know where you're going.
Right.
See, they would be really cool if every week, I mean, I'm sure you guys are able to do this, and we tried tablets here, but they could never leave the sanctuary, which is useless to me. Okay, it's useless. I mean, because now I'm printing music off anyway, I have nothing at the house to practice with, and so I need the access of the tablet.
Yeah.
So what we do is we actually have, because Music Stand is an app you can have on your phone.
Yeah.
And so I practice with my Music Stand app on my phone, and it's the exact same thing when I pull up on Sunday morning. So this is Music Stand, this is a song we're gonna do called Yes I Will.
It's something to use.
And there's my music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like the tablet.
And so the tablet's already preloaded for your for your week.
And what I can do is I can come in here and see how I have notes on here. This one says Capo 4,
Right.
or I can do 26B for my settings and stuff like that. And when I go to my tablet, what I'm going to do this week is put like a little thing on the back that says stands, and I'll upload my own. I'll log in on that tablet, and that way any note I make on here automatically gets saved to that tablet.
Yeah, so we use Planning Center online, which I know you guys are thinking about using Planning Center.
Yeah.
It's
I know
phenomenal.
CCW doesn't use Planning Center; they use church teams
Yep.
now. But with Planning Center, like this is our order of service in Planning Center. I can manipulate this however I want. These are the songs. This is how the whole flow of service. In Music Stand, if Stand is on the first song, at the bottom of the page, it's going to say the next song is Highlands, and it's in this key. This is the next song. Yeah, Another in the Fire. Like it'll tell you. Communion is next on your page, and when you swipe, it's there's nothing. Like it's just goes straight to the next song, but it tells you at the bottom how the flow of service goes throughout. So that's why we use tablets.
We're getting Music Stand. We're not getting iPads or tablets or anything yet, but we are getting Music Stand so you guys can go ahead.
Yeah, and we just got like the Amazon Kindles, the 7-inch ones, because they were on sale on Black Friday for $35 a piece.
Yeah.
So we bought 3 of them.
I mean,
We were like,
you don't need a lot.
Yeah, and then so you click on the song, and then you can swipe. Here's the next page. Down here it says next. It's a welcome. And then you can go through. Here's the next song. Next here's the it tells you in the key that it's in. This is the next song. So if you need to prepare for that, you can do
have
that.
it
You
say,
can prepare,
like
which
here,
is really
I have,
nice.
like,
And like here
verse,
you can look at
chorus,
all
and
the
just
like
put a tab on that if I needed to make like any kind of quotation at the bottom.
Yeah, you can type on it, you can draw on it, you can underline, highlight anything you want right
when
on
you're
it.
setting up the song. We don't do that because it
Did
takes
you
too
hear
much time,
Stan
but
at all, what he was just saying?
No.
with Planning Center and Music Stand, you can actually adjust. So when you print your music out, you usually have verse, chorus. You have one of everything, right? One verse,
Right,
one chorus,
right,
verse
right.
2. With Music Stand, you can actually put it in order.
Change
so
the
it'll go
arrangement. Yeah.
straight
That's
down
what
the
we
line.
got.
You can go
That
straight
is-
through. Next page is straight through the song.
It's
Next page is
verse,
straight through
chorus,
the song.
verse 2, chorus 2.
Yeah, so here, I'll
verse
actually
one
show
again,
you an
whatever
example.
want.
I did that for, sorry Dale.
No,
Yeah,
sorry. This is why we're here today.
Yeah.
This is
The absolute
exactly why we're
best
here.
thing about this
I think that would help you
I
guys
love is
with
we,
practice and
like this
stuff,
Sunday
having
we have
Oh, dude, that would be a huge.
So
help.
here's another in the fire.
We have Jim.
It's 3
right
pages
off
long,
like
but as you
right
swipe,
over.
it's straight
And
through
it's
the
got
song,
Luke
top to bottom,
And
all
I
the
do
way
that
through
really
the whole
out
song.
here.
That's
It's called a
cool.
session.
All the choruses are different. One of them's labeled incorrectly. This is verse 2, but it's chorus 2.
Yeah.
but it's all labeled
It's there.
as you go through.
Yeah, that
So
was
another cool thing that, I don't even know,
On,
It's all about
did you come in for that?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
One last thing with that. There's a thing in music stand. This is the other good thing. Like if you have someone you trust, usually the worship, like whoever's leading worship, usually I'll control it if we're doing it. But in music stand, there's an option to go to sessions. You can link everybody together, and one person controls it.
So that's what you're
He swipes
So
right.
yeah,
and
I'll
mine
swipe and
forward.
his screen will change. So like we're all linked together. If I'm leading, because I'm the worship minister. If I'm leading the service, if I'm singing all 5 songs like I am this week,
Right.
I could be like, this is where we're going. Like
That's awesome.
I'm moving the
That
page
is
for
awesome.
everybody. Everybody else's changes when
So
I
you don't have to
change
reach
it.
up, move it. You don't have to reach
Yeah,
up and
if you're
slide.
playing, you don't have to.
I'm playing it.
Yeah.
It just automatically changes because
Yeah,
he's
that's
doing
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
As long as he remembers to do it.
As long as I remember.
That
Yeah.
is sweet.
It is.
And that comes with the
Planning center.
Planning.
Yeah,
So it's part of
we
it,
are
yeah.
getting that.
Oh wow.
Well,
Okay.
we already have it, but
Yeah.
it's just
So-
not, I haven't.
Now, if
used
you
it.
get
guys
to
yet,
do
but
it,
it's there.
it's a total train wreck.
Now, you still
Take
have
over at
control.
any
Yeah,
time.
you have control at any point.
Yeah.
The only time that
It's
you,
happening.
the only time you basically give control back to that person is if you go to the same page as them.
Yeah.
So like if you swipe, like if I missed a swipe because my eyes are closed or something, you swipe it. You're still going. Mine stayed the same.
Okay.
Whoever's following me is on the same page. If they're not flipping it themselves, if I get to the second page and then I flip again, yours will go.
Okay.
Like so, I mean, there is
Yeah.
a little bit. Whoever's controlling it has to pay attention.
Right.
We have like foot pedals. We haven't really tried to.
I haven't done the
We haven't
Oh,
tried
the
to mess
foot
around with them, but the Bluetooth foot pedal
I
to
heard
change the
about that.
page, you have a left and
Oh,
right,
that
so
would
you
be
can
nice.
just,
Yeah.
That would be really nice.
So one of the other cool things is the new Pro 7, Pro Presenter 7. They are now actually, with the new update that came out, and again, this is more money on equipment,
Oh, it's
but
all money.
you can have 2 different stage monitors. Like we have the stage display here at CCW, the big confidence monitor. You can actually have, I forget how many
3,
you
4
said,
different ones.
but you could have multiple ones. So I could have the big one in the back for the singers. You could have one that has your sheet music on it,
Yeah.
and then somebody else could have another one, and it's still all controlled by the person that's clicking slide. So as you click through, that automatically
That's even
changes.
cooler.
Yeah. All right, Dale, take the
Just
stage.
didn't want you to forget.
So one other thing on stage plotting before we move on, is the cleaner we can keep a stage, the better. Again, people see with their eyes and hear with their eyes. But it's also for, one of the things here at CCW is everything's taped down for a reason. Right? It looks cleaner. So when Joe's coming out, or Pat, or whoever's preaching is coming out from the back room in the dark, you don't want to be tripping over wires. You guys have a little different situation.
Where you trip up now. I'm just-
You trip over them all the time,
You
but
fall into
so just
spaghetti and
the
take it out.
cleaner you can get
I wish we had
it, the more streamlined it will be, the better it will be for everybody. Monitors, again, we've already had enough talk on this, but you don't need everything and their brother and the whole kitchen sink in your ears or in the wedges, whichever. And again, going into in-ears has changed a lot of this. But the other thing that the digital board has allowed us as engineers to do, it's a little different in church because most churches, at least what we're going to be dealing with, don't have a separate monitor mixer. There's not bigger churches, Saddleback, all these guys probably have that. Hillsong definitely has another board on stage, which is their monitor mixer. That's the only person's job is to mix either the ears or the wedges. We don't have that, right? Here at CCW, you guys, for the most part, control your own in-ears. One of the things that changed, though, is with the digital board and the iPad, I was able to get up on stage, literally stand next to my worship leader and listen to his floor wedge and hear what he's hearing. Rather than being on this side of the room yelling at him, hey, what do you need? I could get up, hey, what do you need in your monitors? Okay, I'll fix that right now. So again, it is improved. But even, and you guys all know this because you're all musicians, you don't need everything. You don't want everything. Because in-ears are becoming a thing, a lot of this will go away, but as sound engineers, we need to understand that too. It's just like the front of house mix can get muddled and muddy. Same thing with monitors, and it's probably even worse for them because, Julia doesn't need to hear what Chuck needs to hear, or want to hear what Chuck wants to hear. Practice, practice, practice. Sound engineers, you better be the first one in the building and the last one out the building. That is just my philosophy. But here at CCW, sound engineers are spoiled. This is the only church I have ever worked with or at or even heard of that does not set up or break anything down. That just kind of boggles my mind. The way Nate works it works for CCW, there's nothing wrong with it. It just, to me, I'm used to having to, at the end of service, wrap wires, or wrap cables, put mic stands away, music stands away, kind of clear the stage. Same thing for rehearsal, come in early, set it up. Still, we need to be, it frustrates me, and I'm sure it frustrates you guys, the musicians. You get there early, want to start plugging away, the sound engineer is nowhere to be found. Practice starts at 7. Oh, look, it's 6:59 and 45 seconds, and here comes our sound engineer. From where I'm sitting, that's not acceptable. Sound engineer should be the first one in the building, making sure everything is on, making sure all the mics are checked, making sure as much as you can. Now, I can't, unless I bring a guitar with me, there's one there, I can't plug in for Ernie and pick his guitar, and I'm not going to do that because that's his personal guitar, right? But knowing that it's ready to go, mics, monitors, in-ear batteries, and all that is done. So be the first one in, last one out. Musicians, same thing. If practice is supposed to start at 6 o'clock, don't get there at 6:59 or 5:59. Get there 10, 15 minutes early. Get tuned, get plugged in, get ready to go, so that at 6 o'clock we can jump off. Right? So as much as you want us there early to be able to plug in and start canoodling around before worship, before practice, get there early so we can. Hey, you know what?
I like it.
This also goes for service. Sunday mornings there's a lot more involved. There's pastors' mics that happen. There's a communion mic. There's as sound engineers, we should be walking around the building and checking every single mic in that building. Right? We should be doing a sound check, and there's another thing that a proper sound check should be done every time the band hits the stage. Whether it's a 35-minute proper sound check or a quick, hey Ernie, give me your mic, good, got it. Steve, give me your guitar, good. Julia, give me your mic, okay, good, got it. That's a quick sound check, but that should be done every morning. But you should, as a sound engineer, we should have already been there, turn on the mic, check 1, 2, it works, set it down, turn it off, whatever we need to do, and go on to the next one. We should already know that that's happening. Once everything is plugged in, we're good to go. Proper sound check is something that is vitally important as far as I'm concerned. Not to say anything about someone else, but I don't understand how you run a set without a sound check. Because so many of the problems that we run into, my guitar's not working, my mic's not working, I can't hear this, I can't hear that, would be corrected with a sound check. And again, some of that is just going down the line. So we're looking at, everybody know house left, house right, stage left, stage right? Okay, if I'm standing at the mixer, house left is on my left, house right is on my right. If you are standing on the stage looking out, it is opposite. Stage left and stage right for me is backwards. Okay, so house left is stage right. House right is stage left. Okay, so when I do a sound check, I start on the left or the right. Whoever's there, boom, guitar, mic, good. And sometimes it is an in-depth, hey, I'm gonna work for 3 minutes on Ernie's guitar if he's playing acoustic, right? If he's playing electric, like we talked about, I might not mess with your sound too much, but if you're on acoustic, I might want to take 3 minutes and EQ that right then and there. And that's gonna help me with, and that also drives me bananas. When I'm doing a sound check and I'm working with Ernie, please stop playing and talking and doing other things, because I'm focused on Ernie, and if I can't hear him, then that's gonna make sound check that much longer. But I may take a minute or two to EQ his guitar. Now again, you get into the song, you get into the flow, that EQ may change, but I've created myself a baseline. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things we really need to pay attention to when we're at rehearsal. And there's a lot of muddling around going on, a lot of talking, and not everybody's paying attention to you. Not everybody's paying attention to what you're doing to, for a specific person with the sound check.
Yeah.
So it's all chaotic, everybody's doing this, and then you get, when somebody does realize you're working on the sound for someone, they jump in and say, well, I can't hear here, I can't do this, I can't hear this person. But we gotta realize that you're going down the line, you have a set pattern that you have to do with your sound check.
Right.
So we all need to be patient.
And the more we do it, the more it becomes part of the process. People will understand that. That is why a talkback mic, to me, is not even a question.
Oh my gosh.
There should be a talkback mic. Because even in this room, right, I'm kind of yelling at you, Chuck, because you're farther away. I'm just raising my voice so you can hear me, right? So it's the same thing on stage where, even especially in this building, you're 100 feet away. I'm talking so you can hear me. You feel like you're being yelled at. We're just trying to hear each other. But if I have a talkback mic, and now with the in-ears, I'm literally in your head, right? Hey, so you can talk to that person, and again, that fosters the communication where Ernie may be having a bad day, got cut off in traffic, and he's running late, hasn't eaten dinner yet, and here I am needing something, and I'm yelling to him, and now he thinks, because he's having a bad day.
And that's happened. And I reacted.
Right, but having that talkback mic is, even if it's 4 wedges, hey, this is blah, 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 it fosters that communication. Because most of the people on stage have a mic where they can talk to me, I can hear no problem. Or, if Ernie doesn't have a mic, he can say to the person next to him, hey, can you tell the booth X, Y, and Z? It's the same thing.
See, that's the first step that we have to do. Right after rehearsal, we have to have a good sound check for each person.
Absolutely.
Individually. Because then after that comes a really good rehearsal. Because everybody can hear properly, everybody's gonna have a good mix. So it's gonna flow a lot better if we would be disciplined enough to just, one by one, everybody realizes, okay, it's this person's turn to have a sound check. Let's all be quiet, let's all pay attention, make sure we can hear the sound. That
Which
we're comfortable
includes-
with it.
Which includes tuning guitars and stuff too.
And tuning guitars, yes, guitars come out of tune,
Yeah, but it-
but you should be there, that's what I'm saying, get there 10 minutes early, tune your guitar before, so hopefully it stays in tune. There's times where, and I'll tell, the bands that I work with, there might be times where you don't hear yourself. All of a sudden, you drop out of the mix. Don't freak out.
Don't stop.
I may not know it. If it goes on for 5-10 minutes or 2 songs, then hey, and I might say, hey, I got it, I'm good. Or I'm working on something. I need to listen to something, or I need to fix something, or for some reason I need to repatch something. Don't freak out if all of a sudden you cut out, right? There may be times as a sound engineer, I say, whoa, pump the brakes, stop everything. It's obnoxious, it throws off your rhythm, but there's something that I just, like it happened the other night with the slides. I was doing slides and, didn't have the talkback mic, was trying to get you, and I did what I had to do. You guys kind of freaked out. I fixed the slides, and we're good. We talked about it a little later, and I told Julie what happened. Oh, okay, no problem.
It felt kind of the same backwards when I asked you guys to play a song. I felt like I was being rude because I wasn't hearing you guys say,
Right.
oh, well, give us a minute. We've been
Yeah, and that's where having that communication and that talkback mic is, hey, I'm pulling it up, whatever. But yeah, having that communication is, so proper sound check, it's gonna flow through. Once levels are set, practice starts or continues, it's not a time for us to sit back, drink our coffee, put our feet up on the desk. That's where the work begins. Practice, again, is, for me, is as much for you. Again, it's gonna happen where you show up unprepared, but don't make it a habit. Don't waste my time and your band members' times and the church's time where you're just showing up unprepared week in and week out. And I have my own feelings about that, but be prepared. As a sound engineer, you're gonna and vocalists and musicians, same thing for you guys. You're gonna pick up new things. You're gonna learn new things. You're gonna watch a video or you're gonna see something and oh, I want to try that. Try in rehearsal. Maybe give the worship team a heads up. Hey, I saw something really cool. I'm gonna try this. But try it in rehearsal. Don't try it on Sunday morning in the middle of service. That is not the time to try new things, right? Try it in rehearsal.
She gets upset with me because I'm over there and I'm doing all kinds of different runs and scales and stuff, and I won't do that on a Sunday. But she doesn't realize I'm just trying to throw stuff out
Right.
and see if it sounds good or if it doesn't sound good.
And you gotta warm up. You gotta warm up.
There's only so much I can do at the house.
Right.
And then when I get with the band, and there's like a place where I can throw a fill, because you know us lead guitarists, we gotta throw fills everywhere.
Why not?
And I'll play something and I'll go, ooh, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
I'll just mix that, or I'll work on something else. you know, and she gets upset with me because of the fact that you're always playing, you play too much, and I'm like, you don't understand,
Well,
I'm just trying to find something that
But believe
sounds
it or not,
good.
we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We're doing, you know, learning EQs, learning compression, learning something. No better time to do that in rehearsal. I'd rather squash a vocal, try to learn compressor on a Wednesday night, and oops, don't do that again, than do it on a Sunday morning. But hey, I'm gonna try this, see what this does. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
Yeah.
so you guys get that. Yes.
Just one quick question. Are you gonna cover the use of effects
Not today.
Okay.
Nope.
That's all I need to know.
That's next level stuff.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, dry mic kills me. It's too dry.
And I already said before, practice with the same intensity that you will on Sunday. For digital boards have also greatly changed the way we do sound because we spend hours on a Wednesday night getting your mix set, EQs and the mix, and how many times did you come in the boards like this, where some little kid got into the sound booth and changed every single knot. What it happens, you deal with it, right? Got to the point where once we started getting smartphones, we could actually take a picture of all our settings, so someday we could come back and reduplicate that. With a digital board, save, just like a Word document on your computer, save. And then, I've told people before, all right, hey, when I'm training people, now go move every single knob on this board, and they go do it, and I hit the recall button, and all the knobs move, and everything goes back to the way it was. Now, that's not your set it and forget it mix, right? That's your baseline. So this is, again, not set it and forget it, where if my hands aren't on that board for more than 15 seconds, 20 seconds, I'm doing something wrong as a sound engineer. I should always be tweaking and moving and correcting. So what you do in practice, how you save your settings, that's a baseline. That's where you start every day. But with a digital board, I can recall my baseline every single week, and that's where it is, right? Cool. When you're at the controls, when you're behind the board, be proactive, continue to learn, continue to practice. You're part of the worship team, we've already talked about this. Something that changed the way I thought about it was I would go hang out with the worship team. Whether it's on a Sunday morning or a Sunday afternoon, or we go out for dinner. Because you guys are all up on stage, right? And you guys are talking to each other, and you have your little jokes, and you have your conversations, and I'm all the way back in the middle of nowhere, all by myself most of the time. I'm not part of those conversations, as much as I'm a part of that team. So we need to figure out purposely how we can spend time together. Like we're doing a Devo, that's great, right? But maybe it's a barbecue. Maybe one Saturday we decide, hey, you know what, the whole worship team, everybody in the worship and the sound booth, we're all gonna get together and have a barbecue, hang out, fellowship with each other, right? At our old church up in New York, most of the people would leave the building, which drives me bananas, but then they would come back and they would have breakfast together in the cafe, right? So there we had the overflow, and I had a tablet, my iPad, so I could actually hear what was going on, but we'd sit down and have breakfast together. That's not, don't leave the building. With one service it's a little easier, with two services, don't leave the building. You know how many times where we've gone back up on stage, where's the drummer? Oh, he's stuck at line at Dunkin' Donuts, waiting for his coffee. So anyway, that's a little sidetrack.
Yeah, and I want feedback, you know, it's which we never got. You know, I wanna be able to know how we sounded. I wanna know what you thought of the sound. I wanna know these things, so when we move on, you know, there can be improvements. I can't improve something or fix something if I don't know if it ain't broke, you know, so, you know, I would like that.
That's a great point. I will listen to anyone, but I'm only gonna take feedback from a few people. The worship leader is someone that I'm gonna, if they say, hey, this wasn't working. The senior pastor, or in this case, one of the pastors, hey, this wasn't working. Little Miss Sally Jones comes up to me, Jones is bad. Anyway, little Miss Sally comes up and says, hey, I didn't like the way that guitar sounded, and we need more tambourine. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry that you feel that way. You know, how can I help that? Or, you know, tambourines just, they don't fit with this song. And I'll listen to her, I'll have a conversation with her. I'm not gonna take her input, right? I'm not gonna take her feedback and apply it. Now, if Ernie comes to me and says, hey, my guitar, this and that and the other thing, you know, Ernie, I'm sorry about that. How can I help that? that is input that I will, but same thing, I want that feedback just as much as the next guy, but because of the role that we have as sound engineers, we're not gonna take everyone's input and apply it. Does that make sense?
Well, as a team though, and I think that's the focus of this is, I wanna know if I'm doing something that doesn't sound right or
Yeah.
doesn't sound good, or if our voices aren't blending,
Right.
or if, if
Without the
if
mix.
I'm causing the
right.
mix to slow down,
Well, a couple
whatever
weeks
it
ago,
is,
you guys, I forget what song it was, but you guys were.
communication, because we're not always hearing what you guys are hearing.
Right.
So your feedback is
And definitely
extremely
with the
important.
in-ears now, we ain't hearing what you're
Well,
hearing.
a couple weeks ago, you guys did that song, and the first note sounds like Wild Thing, and then you kind of did that, and I spoke to Jeremy, and I said, hey, that doesn't sound right, and we told you guys, hey, kill that intro, figure something else out, and it's not us being critical, it's improving.
Oh, absolutely.
the one
And
on
we have to be able to bend
Yeah.
and flex
Yes.
like that.
Absolutely.
Because the stuff the stuff we used to listen through wedges, I was able to hear what the mix sounded like. I heard what the congregation was
Right.
hearing. So I knew, but now with the in-ears, and I'm turning people out, I'm only turning up the things
Well,
that,
that's
that I
something-
really wanna
The
hear.
ambient
Well, and
needs
this
to
is,
be used properly.
and I didn't talk about it today because most of us in here use the in-ears. With the way I run a service or a rehearsal, I actually start with the first couple songs, no monitors. I kill the monitors completely in just the house. The only thing you guys are hearing is the house, right? Because believe it or not, you don't need everything you think you need, right? You don't need everything you think you need.
I just
Right.
need the
We get
piano.
used to, oh, this is what I have, and we're in church, we don't have Hillsong's budget, we don't have Andy Mineo or Crowder's budget, we have our budget, right? So we have to work with what we have, but at the same time, if I give you everything in the monitors, that's an overload, and you don't need that. So I would typically run the first song or two with no monitors, so you get to hear the house, then we stop, all right, Ernie, what do you need? What are you not hearing? And that's different from, oh, we turn the monitors on and I give you what you think you need, or you give me what you think you need. Completely different. Again, with the in-ears, it changes some of that, but,
Right.
so that's philosophy on that. How many of you as musicians practice throughout the week? How many of you sound engineers practice throughout the week? Sound engineers can practice? Absolutely we can. Now, I listen to music all the time. I don't actually listen to the worship set, the songs that you guys put out, and I'll tell you why. I don't care how they do it. I don't care how Crowder and Chris Tomlin, I don't care, but I want to learn music. I'm a student of music. So if I'm getting stuck in, well, this is the way that Crowder sounds, none of us are Crowder. Although, complete side note, I did notice at Winter Jam, my beard is almost as long as his, and I was, because there was a point in time I was like, that's my beard goal. Now it's like, it's a nice beard, but I'm a little, anyway. So, but none of us are Crowder. None of us are Mike Weaver from Big Daddy Weave, right? So I don't care. I need to know the song, but I'm not going to listen throughout the week to that set list. I may put it on once if it's a new song, but as a sound engineer, I need to be a student of music. I need to understand how things work. So I'm watching videos and I'm listening to music all week long to understand different genres, or so that's how we as sound engineers should be practicing. Cool. Any other questions, thoughts before we move on? I just thought this one was funny because this has actually happened. My name's in there, which I didn't do on purpose, but we all know somebody that's left the mic on or going to the bathroom with, it says, oh, by the way, I had too much coffee. Woo, what a relief. And then as he visited the restroom coming out to speak, Dale forgot that his lapel mic was on. Yeah, I mean, we've all done it. We've all been in churches where it's, we forget to mute somebody's mic and they go out and have a conversation. And,
That happens
Oh, I
a lot
just got
in
the
musical
joke.
theater, because I've done a lot of that.
So anyway, it's just be aware, be proactive, know your cues, don't miss your cues. And that's where knowing order of service, knowing the flow of the song, when to mute and unmute. So we'll get back to that, some of that in just a second. Truth behind the pulpit. What does the pastor actually need from us? Production matters. Obviously, I said it before, we spend all kind of time, money, energy on this production, right? So it does matter. Let's make it the best that we can be. 1 Corinthians 12 through 31. We are the body, made up of many parts. hand can't be a foot and vice versa. The pastor needs you as much as you need them. Same thing I said before, the worship team can't do the reason what they do without us, we can't do. Same thing, more importantly, for the pastor, I think. There's going to be times where the pastor gets an audible from the Holy Spirit, where everything is set, we've rehearsed, slides are in, everything's good to go. All of a sudden, he wakes up 3 o'clock Sunday morning, and God says, hey, we're going to go in this direction. Do the best you can. Do the best you can with that. Take that curveball. There might be times when I've seen it happen where we are literally adding a new song Sunday morning. I can remember in New York where we are literally singing one song and I'm literally typing another song, the next song, into the system while changing slides. It happens. I don't like it. I can, within reason, I can make it work. It happens. We deal with it. Be flexible. If it's last minute, if the pastor asks you to do it, if you can do it, but that should not become the norm. That's something that around here at CCW we really stress, and we'll push it. I'm sure you guys do the same thing. Hey, we'll make this work one time, right? But the best we can, and again, we have to all rely on the power of the Holy Spirit to get us through. But perfection in the Holy Spirit. A service does not have to be perfect. Perfect service also doesn't mean that it didn't have a problem. It's one where the power of God became evident in the room and the people were touched by the Holy Spirit. We've all been in those services where things seem to go completely wrong, and it was one of the most powerful services we had. Things go completely right, and it adds to, that again, I believe that's why we are spending so much time and money and energy on the production side of things, because it really enhances what we're doing. So let's not detract from it. Second time is not a charm. Don't make the same mistake twice. This is something that I really stress, especially with young kids learning this. You're going to screw up. And I said it before. I make mistakes every time I'm behind the board. Most of the time, I'm the only one that knows I made that mistake. Don't make that mistake the second time. If you miss your cue first service, don't miss it second service. Just, again, you guys know what that is. How this relates to the pastor is you may miss a cue, right? Joe may get out there to start talking and you were figuring something else out, or you daydreaming, or you sneezed or something. Go to him between services, hey man, I'm so sorry about that. That was my bad, this is what happened. It won't happen again. And that is also, that builds that confidence. Because if it happens over and over and over again, we may have to come to you as leadership and say, hey, you know what, we love that you want to serve, we love you, but how about we try door greeting? Type of thing. And again, I'm not saying we will do that, but sometimes, if it becomes a habit, so don't make that mistake twice. Be honest. If you don't know, say, hey, I don't know what happened. If you don't know how to fix it, this is what happened, I'm so sorry, I don't know, I'll try and figure it out. But be open and honest. Again, set it and forget it. You hear me say that a lot because to me that is so important. This is something that I've had many conversations over the years, but even here at CCW, the pastor should never touch his mic. Once pastor comes in, we put the mic on him, he does a sound check, it should be there. He should forget that he has that on. It is not his job to control his mic. Now, if he goes to the bathroom and decides to mute himself, that's on him, but of course he comes on stage and is still muted, we get blamed for it. Try to have them go to the bathroom before they put the mic on him. The pastor has enough to do on Sunday morning to preach, to talk to people, to pray for people, hopefully to baptize people, than to worry about, oh, is my mic on? Am I muted? What? He should get it on. Same thing with even like the clicker. I'm a big proponent of, we get up, we turn the clicker on, we set it down, so all he has to do is pick it up and hit a button. Doesn't have to worry, is this thing on or not? So yeah, and you guys have all been there. Ask the pastor. This is twofold. Ask for honest feedback, see how he viewed the service. Because again, as a sound engineer, even though I think I know everything, I'm not infallible, right? I'm going to stick to my guns for the most part, but we need feedback, right? For all intents and purposes, the pastors are our boss. So we need to know how they feel about the service. But beyond that, ask how they're feeling, right? This is one of the things that I love about CCW. Most churches, and you guys have all been there, put a pastor up on a pedestal. Right? Our pastors are just regular dudes, right? I guess I should include myself in that now. We have families, have bad days, right? Talk to them not just about how was the production, how you feeling, how are things, can I pray for you? right? And that will go a long way in fostering, and do that with each other, you know. Oh, that was a great song. Okay, that's secondary. How are you as a person doing, right? Get to know each other. It's going to make a world of difference that helps them.
Well, we spend so much time on the well-oiled machine type mentality, you know?
Right.
And that's the way we want it.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of lose when your main focus is just putting out a polished thing on
Right.
a Sunday morning.
And that's, you know, we said earlier that production and worship is a fine line.
Yeah.
Right?
And we need to allow ourselves to be vulnerable to each other and not hold anything, you know, we need to be able to be real with each other.
Yeah. You know, one of the things outside, I mean, I guess in the church world too, but one of the things that makes bands so great, or can make bands so great, is the relationship they have with each other. They spend day in and day out traveling with each other, hanging out with each other, spending time with their families, getting to know each other. You know, reason we shouldn't do it here. Now, again, 97% of you in this room are volunteers. But doesn't mean that once a month or once a quarter we get together and have a barbecue, or we do something. You know, I mean, I'm fat, I like food, so it seems to what I gravitate to. But we should still, and the same thing as with our pastors, is we need to be checking on them. We need to be making sure that they're doing well, fostering that relationship and caring about each other. Yeah. The first time, so we all know what feedback is. When I'm training people or even singers on how to hold a mic, I purposely cause feedback, and it's people are so shocked that I can actually do that from the board. But it's anyway. Yeah, feedback is obnoxious. Please don't do that if you can help it.
I love feedback.
Your toolbox. I actually had mine over here. I don't actually have any traditional tools in here. I carry this, well, not so much here, but this is my sound toolbox. I have headphones in here, I have cables in here, I have, might still have batteries in here, I have a cable tester in here, it's over there, tape. There are things that as a sound engineer you will regularly need, doing things the right way. Markers, tape, again, these are just things that will help you with your job. They're not going to make you a great sound engineer. Just because I have a cool toolbox doesn't mean I'm a great sound engineer, but a good sound engineer. They are just things that will help you. The most important tool you have, though, is absolutely your ears and your eyes. Mix with your ears, but close your eyes if you need to. There are so many times where you need to listen to something. Just close your eyes and listen. Look at the stage, see what's going on, right? When it comes to mixing, again, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but if I can't look at something on stage and pick that instrument out, something may be wrong. Okay? Now, something Glenn mentioned it before, well, if I don't hear guitar, I'm going to come back and tell you. Maybe, maybe not. Okay? Think of sound as a straight line. Everything on stage is a straight line. Everything on that stage during worship needs to fit on that line. So you can't have two guitarists on top of each other because then they don't fit. So where do things fit? Sometimes vocalists, background vocalists, you should never be able to pick out a background vocal. I mean, there's only two. But I should be able to look at them and say, okay, I can hear the harmonies, but they're not out in front. Right? But so your eyes and your ears, aside from all these other tools that you may have, even this is a tool. Right? Your eyes and your ears are your absolute best friend. These are just some resources. Yes, that is me on the cover of that magazine. I have been published a couple of times, no big deal.
Cool. Didn't even recognize you.
No, I would have never.
That is me.
What?
Yes, that is.
That's him on the right.
That is
Keep,
me. Right
keep the
there.
beard.
Aw, that's me.
We were published in this magazine after we installed our new sound system. Yes, Jacob, I promise you that is me. We'll have your same hair and a lot less beard. But these are all resources that are, these two books here are very, very heady. There's a lot of technical information that half of which I've already forgotten, but it's for sound engineers. If you want an extra resource, they are amazing. Church Production Magazine, phenomenal magazine, live sound. Also, the Church Production is specifically geared towards churches. So when we put our new sound system in, they came and whatever. Jeremy texted me the other day, hey, what board are we getting? And I'm assuming he went online to their website, to YouTube. If you guys want to learn about our board or anything, YouTube is your best friend these days. Right? Get on there, learn, watch. Not everything on the internet is right or true or appropriate, but there's so many good resources out there. If you want to become a better sound engineer, a better singer, a better musician, then you can go on. And if you want to get better, you will definitely find a way to get better.
Do you actually have that shirt?
No, I wish.
That's a cool shirt.
I really wish I did. Front of house mix. Number one priority is intelligibility. Can you hear what you need to hear? Is it clear? This verse is kind of taken out of context, but faith comes through what? Hearing. If we can't understand the spoken word, we're not going to get the message. Right? If there's feedback, that's going to detract from the service. If somebody's playing a tambourine, chances are it's going to detract from the service. If the mix is just terrible, it very well could detract from what's happening. So intelligibility is extremely important. Do things sound right? If they don't sound right to you, they're not going to sound right to anyone else. Trust yourself. If you're just starting out or you're still not sure what you're doing, you may be a little gun shy, but most people know what sounds correctly. You may not know yet how to fix it, but you know something's wrong. And that's where you can begin to improve upon that. Really listen. If you're tone deaf or you don't understand anything about music, we need door greeters. We need ushers. Okay? Just
Not playing down those roles, but maybe.
no, not at all. That's what I said earlier. This is a volunteer ministry, but it's very specialized. You have to have certain abilities, capabilities. You know, just because someone wants to be a preacher doesn't mean we're going to let them on stage to preach. Just because someone wants to be a singer doesn't. Yes, even you, Glenn.
No, I just was.
Yes, sir.
I was
He's
just
only
laughing.
so
I did have a rehearsal one time with Midge. He was actually walking down the hallway, and I was out at my post out there, and apparently I hit 2 notes and sounded really good. And he's like, "How come you never tried out for the praise team?" And so I kept on singing the song. He said, "You are an awesome usher."
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I think you touched on this.
That's
but,
why I don't say that to people.
Paying attention to the congregation on a whole,
Mhm.
if the majority of the people are sitting down unengaged, there's something wrong with your
Yes.
sound.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
either too loud, too low,
Right.
not enough vocal, not enough piano,
and it's-
something's happening.
It's happened, and it will happen again. It's
Or you
yeah,
have
we're paying
construction going
attention
on in the middle
to.
of the service.
Or just a
Construction.
Yeah, because
We
we
had-
had school, they had construction going on.
Yeah, we had construction going on, and they were like, I mean, they were nice enough to, while Jake was preaching, not do anything. But they were like,
During
well,
communion, you just
dur-
jackhammer.
during communion, yeah, like during the service stuff, it's just like, we're like, hey, so you gotta swing with it sometimes, you know? But,
They're
yeah,
working on Sunday?
they were, yeah, they came in on Sunday, it was,
They
you know,
had to.
they had to, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So they were like, hey, you know,
Wow.
we have to be here, and you guys are here. They're like, so we gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, as long as y'all aren't using the freaking jackhammer while Jake's preaching, I don't care what you do. So, but I could tell the whole time during worship, everyone's like, they're not looking at the sound guy. Like they're looking at like it's not like he's putting that in there, you know.
Yeah.
Things like that can happen.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Just a couple of mixing tips.
Yeah, put a tip jar on the back there. That's your mixing tip. Bro.
Yes, thought about it. With digital boards, this has become so much easier. We'll talk about a little bit. Is with the board we're getting and this board here. There's 100 different scenes. Scenes are basically a folder that we can save So every team should have, you know, CCW doesn't have teams, you know, we'll have one group. But if there's a special service, set a scene for that. You know, at our church in New York, we had 4 different worship teams. I had 4 different folders for those. The other cool thing with digital boards is I can save Julia's EQ under a file that says Julia's vocals. Same thing with Steve. So if they're not on the same time or somebody else is up, we can go in and recall their, and again, that's just a baseline. That's not how she's going to stay, but it's a baseline for her voice. So that's one of the other amazing things about digital.
How her mix sounds and how she really sounds.
You'd be amazed what, well, I mean, you guys are all pretty intelligent and have seen movies. You'd be amazed what we can do with EQs. I mean, you can take someone to, you know, normal voice and make them sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks, or you can, you know, if you know what you're doing, and tread carefully on that. One of the biggest pet peeves I have, and my wife laughs at me because now my kids are doing it. I am very critical of other sound engineers, and not even on purpose. I'm just, like, we went to Winter Jam, and I'm critiquing the sound, because that's who I am.
It wasn't loud enough.
Really?
Musicians obviously do the same thing. And again, it's
It
not,
wasn't loud enough.
it's not that I'm, you know, it's just, you follow what you know, right? But one of the biggest things I have is don't miss cues. You know, if the band and it's happened a couple times here, and hopefully we've dealt with it, but, you know, the band gets back up after the preacher and unmute the band. The pastor's done speaking, mute the pastor. You know, because, like, Joe was getting ready to unplug his mic, take his headset off, and it wasn't, it happens. Don't make the same mistake twice, but be in constant communication. Proper mic placement and usage of a mic is something, as a sound engineer, we need to help the singers. Not every singer is going to be professionally trained and know how to hold a mic, handle a mic, use a mic. You know, the rappers have killed the mic holding because they hold the top of it. And stop. That is the worst thing you can do. Now, within ears, this isn't as big of a deal, but don't ever point your mic at a floor wedge, right? And there's just so many, but those are things, as a sound engineer, we need to know and understand to teach
Bless you.
the worship team, bless you, and help them get better at that.
If you're wearing a preaching mic, don't walk in front of a speaker.
Well, that too, yep.
Where's Jay? I was like, where's Jay?
Where am I? Oh, yeah. Communication, and I've said it all day. Communication is absolute paramount. We used to have hand signals in New York that I could communicate with my worship team without saying a word. You know, whether it was the pastor's mic or the worship leader or the drums or whatever it was, whatever you call, because there needs to be. You also, as sound engineers, and I think this is something that people are so afraid of. Don't be afraid to get up on stage. Be proactive. In New York, I required all my sound engineers and my tech people to wear all black. Because if you need to get up on stage, I have literally had to get up on stage. Now, like big concerts, you know, they change and they're all wearing black, but they use lighting and effects for that. And, you know, every song Crowder's using a different guitar and there's a tech bring. We don't have that here, right? And it's a little different. It's a little different, you know, when we get our new building, we may not have a black stage, but I still want to wear all black. And what I started to say is, I've literally gotten up on stage behind my worship leader, going in his pocket, taking out his mic and changed his batteries or changed the cable while he knows something's wrong because I'm communicating with him. And so I've had to get up on stage and unplug his guitar, plug it back in, change his cable out. Doesn't matter what it is. As sound engineers, we have to be proactive and be able to do that. But communication is paramount. Because it may be simple as his 1/4 inch came out a little bit and he's just not plugged in, and all he's got to do is, boop, that fixes the problem. We don't know. But as sound engineers, and if I'm coming up on stage during a set, just ignore me. Unless I'm like getting in your face or trying to get your attention, just ignore me because I'm there for a reason. I'm not just having a good time and want to be in the spotlight.
Reaching in your pockets and stuff, that's just weird.
Well, but you know what? Sometimes, I mean, he was a really good friend of mine, but it's not like I'd reach in Julia's back pocket. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? Because funny enough, he was praying, so he knew I was coming up. He saw me coming. He knew there was an issue, and he's praying, and I did what I had to do. Again, I had a different relationship with him, but
I'm just
you guys went there, not me, right?
Kept on going.
I know I covered a lot. I don't know what you guys were expecting to get out of today. I hope you learned or took away something. We will continue to train. If you don't already have my cell phone number, I will make it available to you if you have any questions. Go church, you guys already know I'm coming for 2 Sundays to work with your guys. CFCC people, we are gonna have some fun when we get up in our building, when we get a building.
I thought that was a done deal.
When
He's at.
No.
there's no
on paper yet.
there's no ink on the
really?
paper.
Okay.
Yeah, we still have keys. I'm not high-fiving anybody.
Right. Continue to learn. Continue to grow. Okay.
I looked up at the,
Listen to music, learn music, continue to get on, YouTube and especially sound. Don't just turn it on and listen to it. Really pay attention to how things are supposed to sound. There's a lot of producers that are paid a whole lot of money because they're really good at what they do to make things sound a certain way. Begin to learn from that. Listen to that. Even as musicians, that will help you guys. Again, I'm not a musician, never pretended to be, but that will help you. And again, figure out your sound. This is something that we talked about the other day. Is yes, we're taking other people's songs, right? But we're our own entity. Figure out who we are and what we want to do. We don't have to do it the way they do because we can't. Continue to talk to each other. Continue to foster that relationship. Have those conversations. And again, I can email you way too many resources than you ever want to look at if that's what you want. I showed you a couple up there. Get on Google, YouTube. That's really all I got. Any questions? I appreciate you guys coming out. And again, we'll continue this. But any other questions? Anything I covered that you didn't understand? Anything you thought I should cover today that you want to talk about?
Do you have a date in mind for the next time we meet up?
There probably won't be another one of these type of trainings. Pretty much everything from here on out is hands-on.
OJT?
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff we could do, but most of it, is all hands-on. This is just, again, laying the foundation of why we do what we do, and it's here for a reason. Getting in, doing a proper sound check, getting in, working on the board, showing people the processes that we talked about. Anybody got anything else?
Thank you. Good job, man. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much. Pat, would you close this out with her?
Absolutely. Should open.
We could have, Let's talk about that now.
Father God, you are an amazing God, that you would give us talents, that you would give us abilities, and that you would give us the peace that passes all understanding to be able to do this for other people. And I ask, God, that you will never let us forget why we do this, God. It is for people who do not know you yet. I ask, Lord, that you would continue to remind us to speak calmly to each other, that you would remind us to love each other, even when times are tough, God, that thing called love is a decision, it's not a feeling. And so we decide to love people because of you. You first reached out and loved us first, and so how do we not share that with everybody else? God, we are a team, we are unified, and there's 3 different churches probably represented here, but we are one still, the church, and the one you died for. So thank you so much, God. Thank you for this day. We just seek to honor you in all we do, say, and think. And so guide us, direct us, even as we leave, even as we just have fun this day off. God, just still remind us that you are near, even when tough times hit. And when great times hit, let us celebrate those and remember that you are the author of that too. I love each person here, God. I thank you that we are getting out of our comfort zones and doing things for your kingdom work. So continue to reward us for that in the ways you see fit, and just remind us that you are the one who holds it all in your hand. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.